Shiki Tsubasa was a high school student who had just moved from the capital city, Tokyo, to Hokkaido. The moment he arrived in Hokkaido, he was amazed by the sight of thick snow covering the streets. His father told him that he could not pick him up, so he asked Tsubasa to get home on his own. Tsubasa thought he might have arrived too early, so he asked the taxi driver to stop before reaching his house because he wanted to take a walk. He was in awe of how wide and open the area was, as well as how quiet it felt, with no people or cars passing by. The atmosphere was completely different from Tokyo. However, he was shocked to realize just how cold the air truly was. In his mind, winter in Hokkaido was on a whole different level. As he started walking, he could not stop shivering. It made him wonder if moving to Hokkaido during this season had been a mistake. At that moment, the battery on his phone was running low, even though he was using it to check the map. Not far ahead, he noticed a girl standing alone. He was puzzled as to why she was wearing such a short skirt despite the freezing temperature, and even more surprised that she was not wearing thick clothing, especially when he himself, dressed in a heavy coat, felt like he was freezing to death. The girl looked in his direction, and Tsubasa asked her for directions to his home using the map on his phone. He could not help but notice how adorably red her nose was from the cold. After checking his phone, the girl pointed out the route he needed to take. Tsubasa thanked her and started to walk away, almost frozen in place earlier by how beautiful she was. Suddenly, the girl called out to him, asking if he planned to walk there. She told him it would take around 3 hours on foot, especially with the snow falling. Surprised, Tsubasa asked if that place was the town center and whether the next town was really that far away. The girl explained that Kikemi was very large. Tsubasa was shocked and realized he had made a mistake getting out of the taxi too early, thinking he could cover the rest on foot. He said he would just take the next taxi, but the girl told him no taxis passed through that area. When he asked if one would come right away if he called, she explained that if he was lucky, it might arrive in about 30 minutes. She then suggested that he wait for the bus with her instead, since it would also go to the town he was heading to and might arrive in about 5 minutes. Hearing this, Tsubasa felt relieved. He had no idea what would have happened if he had not met her. He thanked her again, and she seemed a little shy. She asked where he was from, and when he told her he was from Tokyo, she shouted in surprise. She could not understand why he had traveled so far from Tokyo to such a remote place. Tsubasa explained that he had moved to Hokkaido because of family matters. He was caught off guard by her accent, which sounded a little unusual to him. She joked that he probably thought people there were country folk, but he denied it and said that he actually liked it there because it felt peaceful. The truth was, he had often been called a country boy back in Tokyo, so he had never been popular. Even after moving from Tokyo, he still felt like one, though fortunately no one there knew it. The girl was thrilled when she learned that Tsubasa was the same age as her, 16. Even more surprising, he would also be attending Hopperio High School, which was her school as well. She could not believe the coincidence and suddenly became more friendly with him, even looping her arm around his. Tsubasa felt slightly uncomfortable because she was standing very close to him. He was curious why in such cold weather she was not wearing gloves. Soon after, she sneezed and her nose started running. Tsubasa handed her a tissue. Back in Tokyo, he had never talked to a girl like this before. He wondered if all Hokkaido girls were this kind. Playfully, she scooped up some snow and slipped it into Tsubasa's coat, laughing when he jumped in surprise from the cold. Tsubasa looked at her face, finding her incredibly beautiful. Her cheeks turned red when she heard him say that she looked pretty. Not long after, the bus arrived and the girl got on right away. Before she left, Tsubasa asked for her name, and she told him it was Minami. He felt lucky to have met a girl in this new place. Shortly afterward, his father sent him a message asking if he had arrived yet. That was when Tsubasa realized he had forgotten to board the bus. Meanwhile, on the bus, Minami was thinking about how nice it would be if Tsubasa ended up in the same class as her. The next day, Tsubasa introduced himself as a new transfer student. He stated his name and where he came from in front of the class. The homeroom teacher then told him to take a seat in the back corner. As Tsubasa looked around, he noticed that Minami was not in the same class. That did not bother him much since he actually preferred diligent girls with black hair. Previously, he had been shocked because he had never met a girl like Minami. However, not long after, Minami entered the classroom. They made eye contact and Minami recognized him right away. She ran over and hugged him, surprised to find that they were classmates after all. At that moment, the teacher scolded Minami for being late again. Tsubasa was just as surprised to find himself in the same class as Minami, and even more so, he realized they were seated next to each other. Minami said that she thought his name was nice, which startled him because she called him by his given name, something only his family and male friends had done before. When class began, Tsubasa felt extremely cold, almost like he was inside a freezer. He wondered how everyone else could study so comfortably, only to notice that the students there were wearing jackets and blankets. Worried that he might catch a cold if this continued, he suddenly received a blanket from Minami. She was used to bringing 2 blankets to school because she got cold easily, but for that day, 1 was enough for her. Wrapped in Minami's blanket, Tsubasa felt her warmth and caught a gentle scent. It almost felt as if Minami were embracing him. Her face suddenly came to mind, making him realize that his teenage emotions might be running wild. After class ended, Tsubasa returned the blanket. He was puzzled when Minami immediately sniffed it. He apologized, saying that if it smelled bad, he would wash it before giving it back. Instead, Minami said that his scent had mixed with hers and she seemed pleased about it. Embarrassed, Tsubasa was convinced that she was teasing him on purpose. To his surprise, Minami asked for something in return for lending him the blanket. She was lucky because she had no one to walk home with that day, so she invited Tsubasa to go with her. Along the way, Minami held his hand the entire time, saying that they were already close. Tsubasa could not believe that they could be this friendly after only knowing each other for 2 days. When he asked where she lived, Minami explained that she took the train home, so she asked him to walk her to the station. She then asked if he had a girlfriend, to which Tsubasa quickly replied that he did not. Minami laughed at how bluntly he answered. She asked where people in Tokyo usually went on dates. Tsubasa said maybe Harajuku or Shin-Okubo. Minami wondered why not Shibuya or Marukyo. Tsubasa explained that people usually went there just to shop for clothes, while those who wanted to walk around and eat would go elsewhere. In truth, he had never been to those places. He only knew about them from the internet. Minami said she felt envious because Tokyo had many places to hang out. Tsubasa then asked where people usually went in Kitami. Minami replied that she mostly stayed home, especially in the cold winter, and people often just hung out at each other's houses. That made Tsubasa wonder if he should also try visiting someone's home. Before long, they reached the station, and Minami said this was as far as he needed to walk her. Before he left, she invited him to come over to her house the next day. Since it was a day off, she hoped he could visit, as she also wanted to learn more about Tokyo. Tsubasa looked nervous, not expecting such an invitation. He agreed, which made Minami happy. She then asked to exchange contact information with him. Shortly after, the train arrived and Minami waved goodbye before boarding. The next day, Tsubasa went to Minami's house to fulfill her request from the day before. It was actually the first time he had ever gone to a girl's house, and he had only been living in Hokkaido for 3 days. He felt a bit worried that his family might find out, but Minami's invitation was just too tempting. When he rang her doorbell, a voice from inside greeted him. Once he said he was looking for Minami, she told him to come in since the door wasn't locked. Tsubasa couldn't help but point out that her home security seemed a little too relaxed. Minami welcomed him at the entrance and invited him inside. After taking off his shoes, he was caught off guard by how bold her outfit looked. She mentioned that he was lucky her parents were out that day. That surprised him, and he found himself overthinking what she meant by lucky. She led him to the living room, where the air felt pleasantly warm. Minami explained that the living room had floor heating and a large heater, while her own room only had a small one, so it was still chilly there. Tsubasa wondered if that was what she meant earlier about being lucky her parents were gone. He sat down, feeling more relaxed, and thought it would be impossible for his mind to wander in that warm, cozy space. But suddenly, Minami playfully brushed her foot against him, making him jump. She gave him a curious look and asked what he was going to do. Minami then went to get them drinks, handing him a bottle of katsugen, saying she had loved it since she was a kid. After taking a sip, Tsubasa liked its yogurt-like taste. Out of nowhere, Minami let out a small yelp. She had spilled some katsugen on herself. Since it felt sticky, she went to change her clothes. Tsubasa's face heated up and his heart started racing. He tried to calm down, but when she came back in something even bolder than before, his heart skipped a beat again. She said she dressed like that because it was warm inside. Tsubasa gave her a VHS tape of a movie he hadn't seen yet, and Minami seemed interested, so she played it right away. Sitting there, Tsubasa's eyes wandered toward her from behind, and he quickly covered them with his hand. Unexpectedly, the movie had some suggestive scenes. He wanted to fast forward, but was worried Minami might get the wrong idea. A moment later, he heard Minami make a soft sound, and soon after, she nudged him with her foot again. He wondered if she was reacting to the movie, but then realized she had actually fallen asleep. Tsubasa thought it was strange that she could nap so comfortably in that outfit while sitting next to a guy, and it made him question if she even saw him as one. Wanting to keep her warm, he draped his jacket over her. When she woke up, she asked about the movie. It had already ended, and he told her he didn't wake her because she looked so peaceful. He left the tape there so she could return it any time. Only then did Minami notice his jacket on her. Tsubasa told her that even if the room wasn't cold, she could still catch a chill dressed like that while sleeping. He put the jacket back on, said goodbye since it was getting late, and thanked her for having him over. As he walked away, Minami suddenly realized something and ran after him. She apologized for falling asleep without meaning to. Then Tsubasa scolded her lightly for coming outside dressed like that. He wrapped his scarf around her to keep her from catching a cold. Her cheeks turned red and she thanked him. He even offered his jacket, but she refused, saying the scarf was already warm enough and she could be outside for a bit like that. Just then, Tsubasa shivered and sneezed. Feeling bad, Minami invited him to Sika Mart, saying she'd treat him as an apology. He didn't have the heart to turn her down, so he followed her there. Once inside, she bought him some food. After tasting the delicious fried chicken, Minami told him the store's onigiri was amazing, especially since it was freshly made there. She handed one to him, and he took a bite right away. Minami then pointed out that a bit of rice had stuck to his cheek. She leaned in, removed it, and popped it into her mouth with a grin. Seeing that, Tsubasa's face turned bright red as he looked away, flustered. Before leaving for school, Minami made a small snowman and took a picture of it to post on her story. When she arrived at school, she saw Tsubasa standing in the hallway staring at the bulletin board. Minami leaned in and whispered into his ear, which startled him. Tsubasa asked her not to scare him like that. On the bulletin board, there was a flyer for the snow festival. Minami asked if he was interested in going. Tsubasa said he wanted to go while he had the chance that weekend. Minami offered to go with him, which surprised him, making him wonder if that meant it was like a date. On that weekend afternoon, Minami was having snacks with her mother, Mei, and her younger sister, Momoko. That day, Mei had made potato mochi with cheese and served it with katsujin. Mei suggested taking the family on a weekend trip because Momoko wanted to go skiing, but Minami said she would not be joining them since she planned to go to the snow festival with a friend the next day. Momoko was disappointed that Minami would not be going with her, and Minami apologized. Mei mentioned that back in grade school, Minami often went to the snow festival. Not long after, Minami's father came home and Mei and Momoko welcomed him. At that moment, Minami saw on her phone that the theme for the snow festival that year was Snow, Our Friend. The next day, Tsubasa went to Kitami Station. The night before, Minami had messaged him to meet there at 11 a.m. He had not expected to be going with her, and he thought going to the snow festival together felt a lot like a date, especially since Minami had sent her message with an emoji. She had also sent him a photo, and when he opened it, he could not help but feel something stir inside him. He figured he should just enjoy his first big event in Hokkaido, and maybe Minami had invited him simply because she knew he did not have many friends yet. After waiting for a while at Kitami Station, Minami finally arrived, and her appearance caught Tsubasa so off guard that he let out a surprised yell. He realized that this was what her casual outfit looked like outside of school. Usually, she dressed in a more revealing style, but this time, her modest look somehow made her even more attractive. It was their first time meeting outside of school on a day off. Minami asked if she looked cute, and Tsubasa, covering his face, admitted that she did. She shared that the last time she had gone to the snow festival was back in grade school, so she had really missed it. Tsubasa told her he had read about the festival online and was excited to see the snow sculptures and try Hokkaido's signature festival foods. Minami suggested he should not get his hopes too high, then invited him to head out. When they arrived at the snow festival, Tsubasa was amazed. There were many snow sculptures on display, an ice slide, food stalls, and much more. Minami asked what he thought, and he said it was incredible. She was happy to see that he enjoyed it so much. They came across a large snow sculpture, and Minami remarked that she remembered the sculptures being even bigger in the past. Tsubasa jokingly said that maybe it was Minami who had grown. When he wanted to take a picture, Minami pulled him close for a selfie. Being that close, Tsubasa caught the pleasant scent of her perfume. Minami teased that he looked funny in the picture with his relaxed eyes, and he asked her to delete it. Soon after, Minami caught the smell of delicious food and invited Tsubasa to get something to eat. Tsubasa bought a hotdog, while Minami enjoyed yakitori. She asked to try his hotdog, opened her mouth, and he fed her a bite. She loved the taste and said it was delicious. When Tsubasa noticed her bite mark on the food, he hesitated for a moment before brushing the thought aside and eating it. Minami smiled, saying that if everyone was as simple as Tsubasa, they would all look adorable. Afterward, they built a snowman together, watched some performances, went sliding, and enjoyed free hot amaze provided by the festival. Minami asked what he thought of the snow festival, and he said it was amazing, especially with so many snow and ice displays. He admitted that since he had lived in Tokyo for a long time, the scenery here impressed him even more. It was still Japan, but it looked completely different from Tokyo. Tsubasa thanked Minami for going to the festival with him, saying he was happy to have gone together. Minami confessed that she had been a little worried because the last time she went was back in grade school, and while she enjoyed it back then, she was not sure if she would enjoy it the same way now. Minami admitted she was worried that Tsubasa might be disappointed if the event turned out to be nothing special, but it turned out her worries were pointless. She said that every time she was with Tsubasa, she liked Hokkaido even more. She also admitted the place was a great city, and seeing Tsubasa so happy made her happy too. Minami felt glad she had gone to the festival with him. Without even realizing it, she might have been completely in love with her hometown. At one point, Minami slipped, but Tsubasa quickly caught her. Their faces ended up close, which made them both blush. Tsubasa apologized and said he didn't mean anything by it. Minami thanked him, and as they walked home, Tsubasa asked if she wanted to hang out with him again sometime. She teased him, asking if he wanted that much to spend time alone with her. Tsubasa replied that it didn't have to be just the two of them next time. Minami mentioned that someday she would go to the Sapporo Snow Festival. The next day at school during lunch break, Tsubasa was about to take out his lunchbox when Minami showed up and invited him to eat together. She had even brought food for him, a cup of yakisoba. She was sure it was hard to find cup yakisoba in Tokyo. Tsubasa asked if she bought it just for him. Minami explained that after seeing his expression while eating at the snow festival the other day, she wanted to keep giving him food. Tsubasa guessed that her shyness must have already reached its limit. Minami poured hot water into the cup yakisoba, closed the lid, and waited for 3 minutes. After that, she added the seasoning, which also came with a packet of Chinese-style soup base, so the leftover water could be turned into soup. Tsubasa realized it was just instant food, but the way she served it made it look really appetizing. Minami then fed Tsubasa a bite. He praised it right away. The noodles had the perfect texture, the cabbage and other ingredients blended well with the sauce, and it tasted amazing. Minami said that with this, she had repaid the favor from the Snow Festival, when Tsubasa had given her a bite of hotang. She playfully asked him if the memory made his face red. Minami asked to see the lunch he had brought. Tsubasa said it was just an ordinary lunch, but when he opened it, she called it a New Year's dish. She immediately wanted to take a picture of it. Tsubasa wondered if his lunch really looked that unusual. He offered her a taste, and she especially liked the meat, asking why it was so tender and flavorful. She even jokingly called it divine meat. Tsubasa explained it was pork cooked by his grandmother. Minami loved it so much she jokingly said she wanted to marry his grandmother. After eating, Minami thanked him, and Tsubasa thanked her back for making yakisoba for him. He said that in his entire life, he had never eaten a cup of noodles that tasted that good, and Minami had given him so many new experiences. Minami was surprised that he had never eaten cup noodles before. Tsubasa also admitted he had never been to a girl's house, never gone shopping at a convenience store, and never gone to a festival with friends. Minami wondered if maybe he was really rich since he had such a different vibe, maybe because he was from Tokyo. Tsubasa said she had the wrong idea about Tokyo and his family wasn't that wealthy, but she didn't believe him and wanted to visit his house. After school, they headed to his place. Tsubasa couldn't refuse since Minami used her secret weapon charm to persuade him. As they walked together, Tsubasa felt unsure because his grandmother was home. Suddenly, Minami spotted an igloo and called Tsubasa over. She stepped inside, and he was taken aback for a moment. She grabbed his hand and pulled him in. Inside, their bodies were pressed close together, and Minami asked if this was his first time and whether he felt the warmth in there. Tsubasa felt the place felt really cramped. Minami pulled Tsubasa closer, but he wanted to get out of the igloo. She asked why he was leaving when he had just gone in, and he was caught off guard because the way she said it sounded a bit suggestive. In the end, he stepped out of the igloo. To his surprise, his grandmother Kayati was standing right there. She was startled by whatever she thought he had been doing inside and admitted she had overheard their conversation. Tsubasa was shocked, wondering how long she had been there, especially since she had heard everything. He was about to explain, but Minami suddenly grabbed his arm and teased that he had come out way too quickly, saying that a first-time experience should be enjoyed. Both Tsubasa and Chaade were stunned by her words. Minami's excitement only grew when she saw Chaade. She quickly introduced herself and mentioned she had tried Tsubasa's lunch that Chaade had made. Chaade smiled warmly upon hearing that. Minami called the cooking god tier, saying she was jealous that Tsubasa got to eat something so delicious every day and that she wanted to try it again. Chaade thanked her for the compliment and asked what Minami's relationship with Tsubasa was. Before Minami could answer, Tsubasa quickly said they were just classmates. Minami turned toward him, smiled, and agreed, though he began to feel uneasy about her. Snow started falling, and Chaade apologized to Minami, saying she had important matters to discuss with Tsubasa, so they needed to head home. She opened her umbrella and invited him to walk with her. Tsubasa said goodbye to Minami and apologized, already predicting trouble. He felt powerless, especially knowing that his grandmother didn't like people who acted overly familiar. To him, it felt like his peaceful life in Hokkaido had just ended. Suddenly, Minami caught up to them and asked why Kaede was using an umbrella. Kaede replied that it was only natural since it was snowing. Minami objected, worried that Kaede might slip if her hands were full and end up getting hurt. She explained that her own grandmother had once broken a bone because of a similar situation, and besides, snow could be brushed off by hand. Minami asked where Tsubasa's house was. He pointed in the direction, but she told him that just ahead there was an intersection that was dangerously slippery with ice, so they should avoid it. She suggested taking a safer route and offered to walk them there. She also offered to carry Kaede's belongings, saying she wanted Kaede to protect her hands so she could keep making such delicious food. Tsubasa insisted on carrying them himself. He then asked Minami if she was mad at him. She said she wasn't mad, she just saw him as a classmate. Tsubasa admitted he wasn't sure how to explain all this in front of his grandmother and quietly told Minami that she was an important friend to him. She smiled and deliberately repeated his words out loud, making him blush in embarrassment, worried that Kaede might hear. When they reached Tsubasa's house, Minami was amazed at how it looked. She said goodbye, knowing Tsubasa had something important to do. But Kaede stopped her, saying they had gotten home faster thanks to her help, and invited her in for tea. Minami was delighted. As Kaede poured the tea, she realized she might be softening up. Perhaps it was just age catching up to her. After all, Tsubasa had chosen to be around Minami, and Kaede was starting to believe she might be a good person. When she returned with the tea, she noticed Minami taking pictures of the house and commenting that Tsubasa was clearly from a wealthy family. Kaede thought to herself that maybe she should keep an eye on this girl, but then she saw Tsubasa laughing and it reminded her of when he was a little boy. Minami told her she wanted to learn a lot so she could become someone important and help her grandmother. It had been a long time since Kaede had seen that smile on her grandson's face. She decided to trust it and served them both tea. The next day, their homeroom teacher handed out a skiing guidebook. When Tsubasa looked at the skiing chart, he saw that he was sitting right behind Minami, with Sayuri next to him. That day, Tsubasa's high school held a full-day ski trip. Everyone took the bus together to the ski resort. Minami could barely hide her excitement and asked if Tsubasa had ever skied before. He admitted he hadn't and felt a bit nervous about it. Minami gave him a playful pat on the head. She loved teasing him like that. Minami mentioned she had been skiing since grade school, so of course she was already good at it. She was planning to show off a little that day and guessed that many of their friends could probably ski well too. Tsubasa agreed, saying that locals were naturally used to the snow. He explained that in Tokyo, it rarely snowed, and even when it did, it never piled up much. Minami then walked over to Sayuri and asked if she was also excited to play in the snow, but Sayuri didn't respond. Minami looked a bit awkward. Tsubasa found it strange since Minami was usually friendly with everyone, so it was unusual to see her being ignored. Curious, he quietly asked if she was okay. Minami admitted she really wanted to get closer to Sayuri and was sure Sayuri could be a fun friend. Tsubasa felt relieved knowing they weren't fighting. Minami confessed that she actually liked Sayuri a lot, but Sayuri always acted distant whenever she tried to talk to her. Tsubasa praised Minami for her persistence, saying she had a strong mindset for trying to befriend her. Minami then told him to really look at Sayuri, her hair, her mannerisms, and her overall aura. Tsubasa admitted she was indeed beautiful. Minami added that a stylish girl with black hair and a polite personality was truly something special. As Tsubasa watched her, he thought it was surprising how Sayuri could embody two traits that usually felt opposite, being fashionable yet polite, and somehow make them work together. Minami noticed him staring at Sayuri without blinking and turned away, ending the conversation. When they arrived at the ski resort, the place was crowded with visitors. Some were already skiing while others rode the ski lifts. Their homeroom teacher gathered the students and told them to split into Class A, B, or C based on their skiing skill level. He asked everyone to follow the instructions of their assigned class instructor. Tsubasa wasn't sure which group he should join. The teacher suggested Class C, since he wasn't experienced yet. Class C students would also have to ride the ski lift before skiing down from the hill, but Tsubasa wanted to practice on flat ground first. The teacher decided to put him in the beginner group along with Sayuri for the day. She also didn't seem to know how to ski. Since the teacher needed to guide Class C, he couldn't stay with them the whole time, but said he would check in occasionally. He handed them ski equipment and reminded Tsubasa not to push himself too hard. Tsubasa thought this might be his chance to talk with Sayuri and maybe act as a bridge for Minami. But just as he was about to start a conversation, Sayuri put on her earphones. He figured she probably didn't want to be disturbed. He felt bad for Minami and considered stepping back, but Sayuri's hair was just too captivating to ignore. Sayuri began practicing walking with her skis and Tsubasa followed her lead. He realized that swinging his body in rhythm with his steps made it easier to move. Suddenly, Sayuri fell. He rushed over to help, but she got up right away, wondering out loud what the point of skiing even was. Not long after, Minami's voice called out to him. She came skiing down from above with a jump and stopped right next to him. She asked what he thought of her performance, and Tsubasa told her it was really cool. Minami smiled proudly, but their teacher shouted from a distance, warning her not to jump while skiing. She quickly returned to her group. After Minami left, Sayuri asked if Tsubasa was Minami's boyfriend. He denied it and asked why she thought that. Sayuri said it was because they seemed so close on the bus earlier. Tsubasa explained that Minami just enjoyed teasing him. At that moment, Sayuri was being scolded by the teacher, who was worried Minami might get hurt from her jump. Sayuri commented that Minami had the aura of a popular girl, someone who was loud, loved having fun, and acted overly friendly. To Tsubasa, though, Sayuri's words carried a strong sense of loneliness. Sayuri added that Minami had everything she herself lacked. Then she ended the conversation and went back to practicing skiing on her own. Meanwhile, a little kid looked too scared to slide down. Not long after, Minami invited him to slide together, promising to stick by his side. The boy agreed, trusting her because she introduced herself as a helpful snow mountain girl. Minami went down first and the boy followed right behind her. That afternoon, the homeroom teacher came over to Tsubasa and Sayuri, explaining that he had been so busy teaching Class C that he hadn't had the chance to work with them. By that time, the other students were already taking their lunch break. Tsubasa quickly realized the teacher had completely forgotten about them earlier. The teacher gave them permission to take a break too. Without saying much, Sayuri packed up her ski gear and left right away. Tsubasa grabbed his lunch and decided to eat outside the bus because he felt awkward being alone with Sayuri. He headed to the eating area, which was completely empty, probably because everyone else had already finished their break. When he opened his lunchbox, he realized he had left his chopsticks in his bag. With no other choice, he went back to the bus to get them. Inside the bus, Tsubasa was shocked to see Sayuri in the middle of changing clothes and wiping her stomach. Sayuri looked incredibly embarrassed. At that moment, Minami was on the ski lift, wondering what class Sayuri belonged to. Back in the bus, both Tsubasa and Sayuri's faces were bright red. Tsubasa quickly apologized, explaining it was an accident. He guessed that Sayuri must have decided to change there because she thought the bus was empty. Feeling guilty for accidentally seeing her bare skin, underclothes, and sweat, he apologized again and assured her he had no intention of spying. He explained that he only came back to grab his chopsticks, and if she didn't mind, he'd just take them and leave. Sayuri stayed silent. Tsubasa decided he'd come back later instead, but suddenly, Sayuri grabbed his hand and asked him to stay and have lunch there because she wanted to talk to him. They ended up eating together in the bus. Sayuri started eating with a good appetite right away, and Tsubasa was curious about what she wanted to talk about. He wondered if she was planning to threaten him into keeping quiet. He still felt a little intimidated by her, even though he didn't really know her yet. Sayuri eventually opened up, saying that she sweats easily and had always been self-conscious about it. Because of that, she didn't like exercising, but she knew that avoiding it would make her fall behind others. The more things she couldn't do, the more she lost confidence, and before she knew it, she started avoiding her friends altogether. She admitted it had gotten pretty bad, but when she finally decided to try skiing, Tsubasa happened to catch her wiping sweat, which embarrassed her even more. Tsubasa apologized again, but Sayuri admitted it was her own fault for letting her guard down. Tsubasa was surprised she was telling him all this, especially since they'd never spoken before. But for Sayuri, that was exactly why she felt relieved talking to him. They were similar in a way. Sayuri had no friends and Tsubasa was a lonely transfer student. Plus, she thought he seemed like such a serious person that he'd never spread her secret. Suddenly, a notification sound came from Sayuri's bag. She looked a little panicked. Tsubasa suggested she check it. Sayuri pulled out a tablet and explained that she had recently started playing Sis plus SP Shuido Witch, a fighting game with various famous characters. Tsubasa admitted he didn't know the game because he'd never really played video games. Sayuri urged him to try it, but he panicked, not knowing which buttons to press. She guided his hands on the controller, but they still lost the match. Sayuri laughed and said she believed him now. He really had never played before. She then taught him how to attack, block, and jump so he could get through the battle. Sayuri apologized again, thinking she must be annoying for suddenly talking so much, but Tsubasa denied it. Sayuri explained that she tried to take care of her appearance because she wanted to get closer to her classmates, but she was afraid they'd find her gross before she even got the chance. That fear made her pull away, and she ended up escaping into gaming, where she felt more in control. She admitted she thought she was pathetic. Tsubasa disagreed, saying she was actually amazing for trying. He told her personality and looks were unique and beautiful, and that he was glad to have met her. Sayuri blushed deeply at his words. Tsubasa then asked her to teach him how to play the game because he really wanted to play together with her. Sayuri's face turned red again, but she said she didn't mind as long as he called her master. She ended up winning the next round, and Tsubasa praised her, asking how she managed to pull it off. Sayuri told Tsubasa that he could definitely do it if he kept trying. Tsubasa decided to give it a shot, kept at it, and managed to win the game. He proudly showed the result to Sayuri, but she pointed out that his opponent had been the weakest computer level. That's when Tsubasa realized they needed to get back to the training area. Sayuri reminded him that their teacher had told them not to push themselves too hard, so it would be better to just relax. Tsubasa then invited Sayuri to go skiing down the slope with him, saying it would be just like the game and that they might pull it off if they tried. Around that time, their homeroom teacher gave Asuka's class permission to ski until time was up. Minami happened to spot Tsubasa and Sayuri riding a chairlift, both looking uneasy with the height. From up there, Tsubasa realized how huge the ski area was. Sayuri asked why he wanted to ski when the teacher had told them they didn't have to. Tsubasa admitted he wanted to be brave and try something new in Hokkaido. He had even asked the teacher for advice before the break, and they planned to go down an easy slope. Sayuri praised him, saying that was impressive, unlike herself. Tsubasa explained that it was actually Minami who had encouraged him. Minami had been his very first friend since he moved there, the one who shared all kinds of food with him, took him to many places, and made ski practice that day unforgettable. Sayuri then asked if Tsubasa liked Minami. He denied it, saying Minami was just a friend, but Sayuri teased that the more he denied it, the more it seemed true. She described Minami as kind and admired by everyone, even making the effort to greet her. Still, Sayuri admitted she sometimes suspected Minami might have a hidden reason for wanting to get close, which was why she never gave a genuine response. Just as Tsubasa was about to explain Minami's true personality, they reached the point where the chairlift would drop them off. Before they went down, Tsubasa made a request. If he could make it to the bottom without falling even once, he wanted Sayuri to respond positively to Minami. He explained that Minami genuinely wanted to be friends and had no hidden motives. Sayuri laughed at how far Tsubasa was willing to go for someone else, but he said it wasn't just for Minami, it was also because he wanted to get closer to Sayuri. She gave him one condition. He had to promise not to leave her behind. He agreed, and they went down together. It was their first time skiing from the top. Sayuri followed Tsubasa's earlier reminder about the teacher's advice. Take it slow, lean forward, keep the skis in a V shape, and go down in a zigzag pattern. She was surprised to find she could actually do it. They were almost at the bottom when Tsubasa focused on his final stop, forming his skis into a V and slowing to a clean halt. He was thrilled to have pulled it off. Suddenly, Sayuri shouted, asking how to stop. That's when Tsubasa realized he had forgotten to tell her that part. He called out instructions to form her skis into a V, but she didn't seem to hear him. He prepared to catch her, but before he could, Minami skied up beside Sayuri and told her to pull her legs together and tilt her body like she was sitting down. Minami reassured her that it wouldn't hurt and she would stop safely, asking her to trust the Snow Mountain rescue girl. She even demonstrated it herself. Once Sayuri managed to stop, Minami asked if she was okay. Sayuri said she was fine and didn't feel any pain. Not long after, Tsubasa caught up to make sure they were both alright. Their teacher immediately scolded Tsubasa and Sayuri for skiing recklessly. Tsubasa quickly went over to take responsibility, apologizing to Sayuri for nearly causing her to get hurt. Minami couldn't help but laugh at how loudly Tsubasa was apologizing to the teacher. Sayuri thanked Minami and apologized for being cold to her before. On the way back, Minami was happy to have skied and become friends with Sayuri, but she couldn't help feeling a bit jealous seeing how close Sayuri and Tsubasa seemed while sitting together in the back seat. That day, Tsubasa was getting ready to head to school. He was unsure if he could even make it there in the middle of a snowstorm, especially since his muscles were still sore from skiing the day before. Keita told him that Hokkaido was the perfect place to test his determination, and that he had to face the snowstorm if he wanted to truly become a local. Tsubasa promised himself that he would fight through it and get to school. He walked slowly through the snowstorm, shivering as the icy wind stung his face. The cold pierced straight into his bones, and his vision was nothing but blinding white. He couldn't see a thing. It felt like he was stranded in the middle of nowhere. He imagined that Minami, on the other hand, was probably heading to school as if nothing was wrong. A car horn suddenly blared, snapping him out of his thoughts, and he quickly stepped aside. For a moment, he felt like he was on the verge of collapsing right there in the storm. Then, a familiar voice startled him. It was Minami, wondering why he was walking through the snow like that. She offered him a ride. Tsubasa, dazed, even asked if he had somehow ended up in the afterlife. Minami simply pulled him into the car. He apologized for suddenly hitching a ride. Behind the wheel was Minami's mother, Mei, who told him to relax and make himself comfortable. Tsubasa was shocked. The stylish woman in front of him was actually Minami's mom. He had assumed she was Minami's older sister. The resemblance between the two was uncanny. Minami teased that Tsubasa might feel cramped in their car since his house was huge. He quickly denied it, but Mei chimed in, asking if he was the wealthy boy Minami had mentioned before, the one who lived in a place like a castle. She even joked that she should have put on makeup since she was meeting him for the first time, which left Tsubasa flustered. Mei even asked if he had a girlfriend back home. That question made him panic, and when Minami touched his arm, he winced in pain. He explained that he was sore from skiing since the activity used muscles he rarely exercised. Hearing that, Minami said that meant they wouldn't be doing any intense sports together for a while. Mei mentioned that Minami had incredible stamina and could stay active all day without getting tired. Tsubasa noted how cheerful Minami seemed that day. When he finally admitted that he didn't have a girlfriend, Mei seemed genuinely disappointed and half-jokingly suggested that he should date Minami. Minami quickly told her mom to stop saying things like that. The conversation makes Tsubasa think back to when he first met Minami. Mei went on to say that Tsubasa was as cute as Minami's father, which made her want to tease him. She even combined their names, Minami and Tsubasa, into Mitsubachi, which means honeybee in Japanese, saying it sounded adorable. Tsubasa thought Mei was incredibly straightforward and honestly didn't know how to respond. Minami eventually warned her mom to tone it down, but Mei brushed it off, saying she was just happy to meet him. Tsubasa, meanwhile, realized that Minami's angry face wasn't actually scary, but it still seemed wise to be careful around her. Mei guessed that this was probably Tsubasa's first time experiencing such an intense snowstorm since he was from Tokyo. He wondered aloud why the school hadn't just closed for the day. Minami explained that snowstorms weren't nearly enough to cancel classes in Hokkaido. Tsubasa pointed out that if such heavy snow fell in Tokyo, it would cause total chaos, like the end of the world. Minami found it strange that something so normal here would actually make the news in Tokyo. Tsubasa admitted he was impressed at how resilient the locals seemed, expecting that they would still go out no matter the weather, but Mei and Minami quickly denied it. Mei explained that most kids who didn't take the bus or train would usually get a ride from their parents during heavy snow. Minami added that she normally wore lighter clothes to look good, that the freezing winter made her not want to leave the house at all. That makes Tsubasa wonder what his grandmother really meant when she said becoming a true local. Mei explained that proper winter clothing was expensive, boots, coats, and all that. And since the winter season lasted so long, it could drain your wallet just on clothes. Minami complained that her allowance wasn't enough to buy new outfits, so she wanted to get a part-time job, but Mei immediately said no, reminding her that her father had forbidden it too. Tsubasa thought Minami's family seemed really close and figured it must be challenging to be a trendy girl in Hokkaido. He mentioned that both Minami and Mei already looked beautiful as they were, which surprised them both. Minami replied that compliments from him didn't really work on them. When they finally arrived at school, Tsubasa thanked them for the ride. Mei offered to give him a lift anytime there was a snowstorm. They got out of the car, and just before Minami closed the door, Mei commented that what had just happened was really nice. Minami and Tsubasa then hurried toward their classroom. All the while, Mei couldn't help but find amusing that something seemed to be blooming between the two in the middle of a snowstorm. Tsubasa and Minami were walking down the classroom hallway when Tsubasa suddenly winced in pain. Minami immediately offered to help him, but Tsubasa refused. At that moment, they ran into Sayuri, who was just heading to school as well. Minami called out loudly and went over to Sayuri. She greeted her and gave her a tight hug. Sayuri winced from the hug and said she would never forgive Minami for that. Seeing this, Tsubasa asked if Sayuri was also experiencing muscle pain. Sayuri turned the question back on him, asking if he was feeling the same. Tsubasa admitted that he had quite a bit of muscle soreness. Sayuri thought that the game they had been playing was too tough for beginners like them. Seeing how close Sayuri and Tsubasa were, Minami got annoyed and accused them of cheating because they could get along well without including her. Sayuri insisted that she and Tsubasa were not that close, and Tsubasa agreed. Suddenly, Minami shouted that she also had muscle pain. Once in class, Minami was busy fixing her appearance. She asked Tsubasa if he had already bought a cardigan and a blanket. Tsubasa said he had, explaining that living in Hokkaido would be tough without those two items. He also said he couldn't keep borrowing them from Minami all the time. Even though Minami never minded lending them to him, she opened her cardigan to show she had a hand warmer inside. Tsubasa was surprised to see it and suddenly understood why Minami always seemed tough enough to wear light clothes. Minami lent the hand warmer to Tsubasa and told him to use it because the cold in Kitami was extreme. Tsubasa accepted the hand warmer, feeling a bit strange because he never imagined he could chat so comfortably with a trendy girl like Minami. Something that seemed impossible, he was still in Tokyo. Minami mentioned she really wanted to buy new lipstick, and Tsubasa invited her to go buy some after school. Without realizing it, Tsubasa used the Hokkaido dialect, which made Minami super excited to hear it coming from his mouth. She was sure he had caught the local accent from her, declaring that he had officially become a local resident. Not long after, Sayuri came over to Tsubasa and asked him not to consider Minami a local, saying she was sure Tsubasa had already realized that Minami was a different kind of girl. Hearing this, Minami refused to accept it and said she was a genuine Hokkaido native. Sayuri also said she was originally from Hokkaido, but didn't often use the dialect or unique expressions, explaining that there were many kids like her who weren't good at skiing or winter sports. Tsubasa noticed that Sayuri rarely talked that much, and suddenly, she got a bit shy. Minami said all her family and relatives in Sapporo used the Hokkaido dialect, but Sayuri said her family and relatives didn't and only her grandparents spoke it. Tsubasa guessed that it probably depended on location, family, and age, which is why it varied. At that moment, Tsubasa noticed Sayuri was carrying a tablet. Sayuri said she was just holding it around, and if Tsubasa didn't want to play, he didn't have to. Tsubasa said he wanted to play together with Sayuri. Sayuri blushed, not expecting Tsubasa to be that innocent. Tsubasa said Sayuri was the teacher who taught him how to play games and asked if Minami wanted to be her student as well. Minami showed interest and asked Sayuri if she could join them, and Sayuri agreed. Sayuri invited them to meet up at Tobu after school. After school, the three of them went to Tobu together. The place had fashion stores, restaurants, and even a supermarket selling lots of meat. They gathered at a restaurant and chatted while eating. Tsubasa said the place was really spacious, but Sayuri mentioned that Tokyo was more luxurious. According to Tsubasa, this place was different from the usual supermarkets because it was bigger and the atmosphere was calm without the usual hustle and bustle, making it feel peaceful. They took turns playing games there. At one point, Minami was playing, while Sayuri and Tsubasa enthusiastically gave her directions, and eventually he won the game. Sayuri and Minami were super excited about their win. Tsubasa said he wanted to go to the restroom, and Minami showed him the way. Minami invited Sayuri to look around the cosmetics section. Sayuri was surprised when Minami called her Sharon. Minami said that from now on she wanted to call her that. Sayuri wanted to buy colored contact lenses but found them too expensive. Minami suggested they split the cost together. Minami admitted that she also wanted to buy lipstick and shampoo. Sayuri acknowledged that Minami was truly kind, and hearing that made Minami's face blush. Sayuri apologized for often being harsh toward Minami at school, but Minami didn't mind at all. Not long after, Tsubasa returned from the restroom. Then the three of them went to a cosmetics store and picked out several items to buy. Minami even bought the shampoo that Tsubasa had chosen, and Sayuri mentioned that her contact lenses were also picked by him. Tsubasa apologized if his choices didn't match their tastes, but it turned out both of them liked what he picked. After finishing their shopping, Tsubasa suggested they head home, but before leaving, Minami wanted the three of them to take a photo together in a photo booth. That night, while Tsubasa was studying, he remembered the English homework that was assigned during class. He decided to ask Minami about it through a message. A photo of the three of them was stuck on the back of Tsubasa's phone. Shortly after, Minami replied saying she was soaking in the bath. Not only that, she even sent a picture of a fox doll she had while bathing. Minami was curious about how Tsubasa would react after seeing it. She was pretty sure he would be panicking. Soon after, Tsubasa replied, apologizing for disturbing Minami while she was bathing, and mentioned that the fox doll was cute. Then Minami deliberately sent a photo of herself soaking in the bath, which immediately surprised Tsubasa. After seeing the photo, Tsubasa couldn't focus on studying anymore. Minami was sure that Tsubasa's reaction must have been funny after seeing her photo. Not long after, Tsubasa replied again, complimenting Minami on how diligent she was in taking care of her appearance and how her efforts really showed in the photo. At that moment, Tsubasa was genuinely nervous about whether his reply sounded right. Shortly after, Minami called him and Tsubasa wasn't sure whether he should pick up. In the end, he answered the call, but it turned out Minami was video calling. The moment Tsubasa saw Minami's face on his phone, he was shocked. He hadn't expected her to call while still in the bathtub. Minami was so happy to see Tsubasa's embarrassed reaction. Tsubasa felt very shy, while Minami laughed happily at his face. Tsubasa thought that if this went any further, his life could be in danger, so he quickly ended the call. Minami asked if Tsubasa took baths every day. He admitted that he did and that he had just finished. Minami said that besides her and her mother, their family usually soaks twice a day. Tsubasa assumed that they often took hot baths because of the cold weather. Minami explained that her father rarely sweats and that the electricity bills could get really high, so she and her mother only bathed briefly. Tsubasa acknowledged how managing finances during the snowy season must be a hassle. Minami mentioned that she used to go on vacations to hot springs with her family and wanted Tsubasa to try the hot springs in Kitami. She can offer to accompany him, but Tsubasa said he wouldn't panic anymore. Minami then asked what Tsubasa was doing at that moment. He said he was working on English homework and wanted to know if it was due tomorrow, which was why he messaged her. Minami suddenly realized she hadn't done it yet. Accidentally, she dropped her phone at the same time. Tsubasa dropped his too. Minami blushed and asked if Tsubasa had seen that. He admitted that he had just dropped his phone because he was startled. Minami felt relieved and ended the call. Tsubasa wondered what was up with Minami, why she had gotten so startled just hearing about the homework. Minami was really embarrassed because of what had just happened. Shortly after, Mei came by to take a bath and saw Minami looking pale. She asked if Minami was feeling dizzy. Minami admitted she felt a little dizzy. The next day, Minami didn't turn in her homework on time and got scolded by the teacher. That day, Tsubasa went to a karaoke place with his friends. Minami sang a song with her beautiful voice, and when she finished, everyone cheered happily. Tsubasa admitted that Minami really had a great voice, and Sayuri acknowledged that Minami's flashy party girl vibe was really something special. Minami's friends mentioned that they always sing that song whenever they go to karaoke. According to Minami, the song was uplifting and gave her energy, so she really liked it. At that moment, Sayuri asked if Tsubasa often went to karaoke at Kayada's place. Tsubasa said he rarely did, and he had only been a few times with his family. That's why he felt a little nervous when Minami invited him to karaoke that day. Then Tsubasa asked Sayuri about her karaoke habits, and she said she usually went alone. Hearing this surprised Tsubasa, but he also said that everyone's taste is different, and that's a good thing. Sayuri felt a little pity for herself because she liked going alone. Their friends urged Sayuri and Tsubasa to pick songs quickly, but both of them looked confused. Minami came closer, wanting to help pick songs for them. She chose some songs for Tsubasa and Sayuri that invited them to sing together. After singing, they all ate together. The guys talked about the upcoming exams and plans to study together, while the girls chatted about their nails. Suddenly, Minami mentioned that Valentine's Day was coming up soon. The boys said they weren't expecting any Valentine's chocolates, but the girls didn't mind giving out friendship chocolates. After the outing, Tsubasa wondered if Minami might be making chocolates for someone special. Just then, Takayumi asked Minami to make chocolates for him. Minami immediately agreed because she planned to make a lot of chocolates that year. She had even made 60 last year. The girls joked that Minami's chocolates were like social welfare supplies because there were so many. At that moment, Tsubasa felt relieved knowing Minami was making chocolates for everyone. When Sayuri was asked if she liked making chocolates, she said she'd rather spend her money on her hobbies than on making chocolates. Everyone laughed at Sayuri's answer. Tsubasa was then asked if he had ever received Valentine's chocolates while living in Tokyo. He admitted he only got chocolates from his family. Everyone laughed, pointing out that meant Tsubasa hadn't gotten any from his friends. After enjoying the conversation, they said their goodbyes and headed home. That day, Tsubasa felt really satisfied because he got to chat with a lot of people, and he felt lucky to have gone out with them. Later, Minami and Sayuri called Tsubasa over at the same time. Minami asked if Tsubasa and Sayuri had a good time that day. Both said they were happy to have gone out with everyone. Minami was glad to hear that and promised to invite them again sometime. Tsubasa then asked why Sayuri had called in earlier. Sayuri said it wasn't anything important. After that, Tsubasa invited both of them to go home together. Minami complimented Tsubasa, saying he was surprisingly good at singing. At that moment, Sayuri stopped to read an article about 10 questions to figure out someone's favorite chocolate. Soon after, Minami called her and Sayuri quickly went over. That weekend, Sayuri was relaxing and playing games at home, but she kept thinking about Valentine's Day. She pushed the thought away and focused on a game event, but somehow she ended up going to a chocolate shop instead. Suddenly, Minami showed up. Sayuri was surprised to see her there too. Minami said she wanted to buy ingredients to make chocolates. She asked Sayuri if she wanted to shop as well. Sayuri said her nail polish had faded, so she wanted to buy more. But Minami said Sayuri's nail polish still looked pretty strong. Sayuri smiled shyly. Minami guessed that Sayuri might be there to buy chocolates, but Sayuri said she just wanted to buy some cosmetics and asked Minami to help pick them out. After Minami helped her choose cosmetics, Minami ended up buying some for herself too. Minami said she liked the special Valentine's edition lipstick. Minami then asked what kind of chocolate Sayuri liked. Sayuri paused for a moment, then said she preferred plain, pure chocolate. Minami said she always bought Royce chocolates whenever she went to Sapporo. After chatting a bit more, Minami said goodbye and went off to buy chocolate ingredients. Suddenly, Sayuri asked if she could go with Minami. Her face turned red and she asked Minami not to misunderstand. She wanted to give chocolates to Minami. Minami smiled widely and promised to make some delicious chocolates for Sayuri. They quickly headed out shopping together. Before leaving, Minami offered to help Sayuri if she had trouble making chocolates. Sayuri thanked her. Just before Minami left, Sayuri asked if Minami was going to make special chocolates for Tsubasa. Minami was surprised by the question and asked why Sayuri would think that they were that close. Sayuri thought the two of them were pretty close, but Minami said they were just friends. Minami added that she and Tsubasa only played games together. Sayuri apologized for asking a random question like that, and then they parted ways to go home. That night, Tsubasa was studying the exam guidelines. He kept checking his phone repeatedly, as if hoping Minami would contact him. However, he pushed that thought aside and focused back on studying. At the same time, Sayuri was preparing ingredients to make chocolate. She opened her phone and saw a message from Minami. Minami thanks Sayuri for keeping her company while shopping, saying she really enjoyed buying lipstick and nail polish together. Not long after, Minami sent another message telling Sayuri that her chocolates were almost done and that she was worried about Sayuri. Sayuri replied that she was just playing a game and was about to start making her chocolates. Sayuri then called Minami. Minami was so happy because it was her first time having a phone call with Sayuri. Sayuri asked how to make chocolate and said she wanted Minami to teach her an easy way. Minami happily explained everything. She told Sayuri to cut the chocolate into pieces. Minami quickly chopped hers because she was practiced from gaming. Then Minami instructed Sayuri to pour the cream into a bowl and heat it up by boiling water in a pot and placing the bowl in the hot water, making sure the water didn't get into the bowl. Minami asked Sayuri to pour the cream in half the amount of the chocolate. After turning off the heat, she told Sayuri to mix the cream and chocolate pieces until melted. Then, just pour it into molds and refrigerate for an hour. Once frozen, cut them into desired sizes and sprinkle cocoa powder on top. Sayuri was surprised to learn it was actually very easy. She then asked how Minami's chocolates were coming along. Minami smiled and asked Sayuri to wait until tomorrow. Sayuri wondered how many chocolates Minami was making. Minami admitted she was making 70 chocolates, breaking last year's record. Sayuri said Minami must have a lot of friends and praised her enthusiasm. Minami explained she made them to make her friends happy and thought their reactions would be funny, which made her happy just thinking about it. Minami then asked Sayuri what she was imagining while making chocolates. Sayuri said she was making chocolates for Minami. Minami was so happy and asked if there was anyone else Sayuri was making chocolates for because she was curious. Minami also asked about Sayuri's relationship with Tsubasa, which surprised Sayuri. At that moment, Minami accidentally spilled soy sauce. Sayuri heard the commotion through the phone and asked if Minami was okay and what was happening. Minami said her chocolates had just gotten covered with cooking sauce and soy sauce. Sayuri asked if the chocolates were still okay. Minami replied that they were soaked in soy sauce and admitted it was her fault for forgetting to tidy up. Minami then asked if Sayuri had understood how to make the chocolates and remembered the instructions. Sayuri said she did, and Minami felt relieved. She ended the call because she needed to clean up. Shortly after, Minami sent an encouraging emoji to Sayuri. Sayuri thought Minami was way too kind. The next day, Tsubasa looked a bit tired from staying up late studying the night before. When he got to his shoe locker, he hoped to find some chocolates inside, but it was empty. He quickly went to class and Minami greeted him. Tsubasa noticed Minami's lower eyelids looked slightly red. Minami gave him a chocolate since it was Valentine's Day. She was sure chocolates like that couldn't be found in Tokyo. Tsubasa was very thankful and promised to enjoy it. Soon after, Sayuri arrived in class and Minami greeted her right away. Minami gave Sayuri chocolates, and before long, other classmates also asked Minami for chocolates. They were surprised that the chocolates Minami handed out weren't homemade. Minami was indeed giving out store-bought chocolates because the homemade chocolate production had been canceled due to unexpected circumstances. Takayumi was very disappointed since he had been looking forward to them for weeks, admitting how upset he was. Not long after, the girl called for Takayumi, and he immediately left the classroom. Tsubasa guessed something must have happened since it was unusual for Minami not to make chocolates that year. After Takayumi received chocolates from a girl in the hallway, Sayuri approached him and warned she would hit him if he said anything like that to Minami. Takayumi got scared after hearing the threat. During class, Minami seemed really down and unlike her usual self. That day, the homeroom teacher announced that extracurricular activities would be suspended starting immediately because exams were coming up. He told the students to head home right after classes, except for those assigned to cleanup duty. That afternoon, Minami and Tsubasa were on cleaning duty for the music room. Tsubasa mentioned that normally, while cleaning, they would hear the sounds of music club practice, but that day felt strange because the room was unusually quiet after school. Tsubasa thanked Minami for giving him some chocolate and said he planned to eat it after he got home. Suddenly, he was surprised to see Minami crying quietly. He didn't understand why she was so upset and asked her to tell him what was wrong. Minami then shared what had happened with the chocolates the night before. None of the chocolates she made turned out edible. She thought there might still be a few that survived, maybe just a little cracked or with some spilled milk, but she couldn't bring herself to give someone chocolates that didn't turn out well. Still, she really wanted to share the chocolates she made with others. She felt like she had disappointed everyone. She also wanted to give some to Tsubasa. Minami's mom had told her to tidy things up first, but she hadn't done it. The night before, she had also asked a strange question to a friend over the phone. Because of that, Minami was convinced this was karma for her carelessness. Suddenly, Tsubasa sat down at the piano bench and started playing. He thought maybe that was something he could do to cheer Minami up. The music he played was so beautiful, it moved Minami. It turned out to be the same song Minami had sung at karaoke. Tsubasa admitted that he had learned some piano before and was trying to mimic it. Minami praised Tsubasa for being amazing at piano and asked why he chose that song. Tsubasa said that Minami always encouraged him, so he wanted to encourage her too. Minami remembered she had told him that the song she sang at karaoke made her feel energized whenever she heard it. She laughed and asked why Tsubasa liked doing things like that. She said she was already really motivated and actually very happy. She complimented Tsubasa for being so cool. Tsubasa felt relieved that Minami had cheered up. Not long after, Sayuri came into the music room to see them. Minami asked why Sayuri was there. Sayuri said she had come to give chocolates. Hearing this, Tsubasa was surprised. Minami thought Sayuri was going to give chocolates to Tsubasa, so she said goodbye and started to leave. But suddenly, Sayuri handed chocolates to Minami instead. Sayuri asked if Minami had forgotten that she promised to give her friendship chocolates. Minami was touched and hugged Sayuri right away, saying how much she cared about her. Sayuri was surprised by the hug and asked Minami to wipe her nose first. Minami said she wanted to eat the chocolates right then and there. At that moment, Tsubasa felt really embarrassed because he thought Sayuri had brought chocolates for him. He wished he could disappear or dig a hole all the way down to the center of the earth. Unexpectedly, Sayuri also made chocolates for Tsubasa because he was one of her students. She said those were leftover chocolates from the ones she made for Minami. Tsubasa smiled happily and thanked Sayuri. Then Sayuri commented that Tsubasa's piano playing earlier was really awesome. Minami tried the chocolates and said Sayuri's homemade chocolates tasted amazing. Sayuri was surprised since it was her first time making chocolates. Minami invited them to eat the chocolates together. It turned out that both Tsubasa and Sayuri had kept some chocolates for Minami, and the three of them enjoyed Minami's chocolates together. That day, after the classes ended, the homeroom teacher announced that the final exams would start next week and asked the students to start studying harder from then on. Tsubasa packed his things and got ready to go home. He noticed Minami complaining because she didn't expect the final exams to be so close. Tsubasa asked if she didn't like exams. Minami clearly didn't like exams, while Tsubasa felt that exams gave him a sense of satisfaction because he could see the results of his hard work paid off. Minami admitted that she had never heard anyone say something like that to her before. Tsubasa apologized if he sounded boring, but Minami thought that was actually impressive. Tsubasa blushed hearing Minami praise him. Minami then got motivated and invited Tsubasa to study together at her house. After school, Minami invited Tsubasa and Sayuri over to her place since they were going to study together. Sayuri wondered why she was invited to join the study session. According to Minami, the more the merrier. It would be more fun that way. Sayuri guessed that Minami probably didn't actually intend to study, but Minami admitted she was worried about the exams and called Tsubasa their personal tutor. Tsubasa thought that helping others study would also increase his own knowledge, so he didn't mind at all. When they arrived at Minami's house, they immediately took off their shoes and went inside. No one was home at that moment because both of Minami's parents were working, and her younger sister was at a dance class. Sayuri was surprised to learn Minami had a younger sister. Minami explained that's why she acted mature, but Sayuri thought Minami was still childish. Minami asked them to go straight to her room because she was going to prepare some drinks. She mentioned that her room was on the second floor at the far end. Sayuri said it was her first time visiting Minami's house, while Tsubasa said he had been there once before. Sayuri was surprised to hear that. Tsubasa explained that he and Minami had only watched a movie together in the living room and that he had never actually been inside her room. Hearing this, Sayuri called Tsubasa a flirt. Tsubasa didn't like being called that and insisted he hadn't done anything, especially since Minami fell asleep while watching the movie. They then went into Minami's room. Sayuri commented that the room had a strong Minami vibe. The room was neat and tidy, with lots of cosmetics and nail polish collected by Minami. It was Tsubasa's first time entering a girl's room, and the scent was really nice. Looking at the bed, Tsubasa imagined how Minami must spend her time there every day, joking around, sleeping, and changing clothes. He quickly pushed those thoughts away when Sayuri shot him a sharp look and called him a pervert. Not long after, Minami came in with the drinks. She poured the drinks into glasses. Sayuri said she really liked the drink, which was called Ribbon Napoleon. It seemed like it was Tsubasa's first time hearing about it. He took a sip and found it genuinely refreshing. Minami explained that it was a specialty drink from Hokkaido that had been around for a long time. Sayuri said the soda flavor was strong, which made her head feel refreshed again. Tsubasa thought that drink was a must-have during group study sessions. After that, Minami suggested they play a quiz game. Tsubasa suggested using the theme of the subjects for the first day of exams, which was history. Tsubasa started by giving an easy question about Christian theology proposed by Calvin. Sayuri and Minami started thinking. Tsubasa gave a clue, purpose/destination, and Sayuri immediately answered predestination. Next, Sayuri gave a quiz about the law related to the standards of worship practices in the Church of England. Tsubasa answered the act of uniformity. Sayuri guessed that Tsubasa must already know the answer. Then it was Minami's turn to give a quiz. She mentioned that Kitami produced 70% of the world's peppermint supply. Tsubasa and Sayuri were surprised by what Minami said, but Tsubasa thought it was amazing information. Sayuri realized that's why her grandmother kept peppermint candies at her house. Minami admitted that her father told her that fact. Unfortunately, that wasn't on the exam or part of any test question. Tsubasa encouraged Minami, saying it wasn't too late to study and that if she kept trying, she would definitely get it. Those words motivated Minami even more, and she promised to work hard. They studied together, losing track of time. Meanwhile, Kaede was cooking dinner together with Tsubasa, so she prepared fried chicken. After studying for a long time, Minami felt like her brain was overheating since she hadn't studied in a while. Sayuri was also exhausted. On the other hand, Tsubasa praised them for being amazing because they had been working hard. At that moment, Tsubasa suddenly realized that it was already past 7 p.m. He was surprised and quickly got ready to leave. Tsubasa said goodbye and headed home immediately. When he opened the door, it happened to coincide with Mei just coming back from work, and Tsubasa accidentally fell onto Mei's chest. Mei quickly offered to drive Tsubasa home. Tsubasa explained that he had just been studying at Minami's house and apologized for troubling Mei by asking for a ride. He could still feel Mei's softness and smell her scent. Mei didn't mind since she had just returned herself and their houses were nearby, so she told Tsubasa not to hesitate to ask her any time. Mei mentioned that Minami had told her Tsubasa was good at playing the piano. Tsubasa admitted that he had been learning piano since he was a kid. Mei shared that Minami had been sad and upset on Valentine's Day, which worried her. However, Minami came home smiling that day and suddenly said that Tsubasa was great at playing piano. That made Mei feel relieved and she thanked Tsubasa. When they arrived in front of Tsubasa's house, Mei commented that his house looked like a palace. Tsubasa thanked Mei again for the ride and she gave him a cold drink as a gift for working hard every day. After Mei left, Kaede appeared at the gate looking angry. She called out to Tsubasa and immediately scolded him for coming home late. The next morning, just as Tsubasa was about to leave for school, Kaede asked him to take out the trash. Tsubasa said goodbye and took the trash with him. He was still feeling nervous because of being scolded by his grandmother the night before. Kaede told him to follow the rules while living in that house. She forgave him this time, but warned that if he made the same mistake again, he would know the consequences. Tsubasa apologized and promised not to repeat it. While Tsubasa was about to throw away the trash, he noticed a girl standing in front of the trash bin. He was stunned by her calm beauty, which looked harmonious with the snow around. He wondered what she was doing by the trash. After a while, the girl approached and shooed away a crow perched on the bin. Tsubasa was surprised to see this. The girl said the crow wasn't as scary as its cawing sounded. They made eye contact and the girl said she had already chased away her troublemaker, so Tsubasa could now take out his trash. Then she left. At school, Tsubasa told Minami about meeting a beautiful girl with bright pink short hair and a typical Japanese headband. Minami said that girl was their upperclassman named Reina. She admitted that she was jealous that Tsubasa had met Reina first thing in the morning. Tsubasa asked if Minami really knew Reina. Minami confessed that Reina was her idol. She added that Reina had won the school beauty contest 2 years in a row and that Reina's parents were from abroad. Reina was famous for being incredibly beautiful at their school. Minami even wished she could be born again as a cool and pretty girl like Reina. Tsubasa thought Reina's beauty seemed beyond just a typical Japanese level. Minami invited Tsubasa to study in a group again at her house with Sayuri, but Tsubasa apologized, saying he wanted to study on his own at home until exams started. He said he didn't mean to avoid studying with Minami and Sayuri, but he just wanted to focus better alone. Minami was disappointed. Tsubasa couldn't tell them about being scolded by his grandmother because he didn't want to worry Minami and Sayuri. Minami planned to invite Sayuri, but suddenly Sayuri arrived and immediately rejected the idea. Sayuri guessed that they would probably just end up joking around like the day before when Tsubasa got home. During lunch break, Minami approached Sayuri and invited her to eat together, but Sayuri declined because she was busy reading a game tutorial. Minami ended up eating at Sayuri's table instead. Minami felt lonely since Tsubasa suddenly left, even though they usually had lunch together. Sayuri asked where Tsubasa had gone and wondered if maybe Minami and Tsubasa were upset with each other because Tsubasa didn't want to join the study group. Minami said it was impossible for her to be mad over such a trivial matter. Sayuri told Minami not to worry because Tsubasa probably had his own reasons. However, Minami teased Sayuri, saying she sounded like an old lady. Meanwhile, Tsubasa was in the library, wanting to change his study environment, which actually helped him focus better. Suddenly, he heard someone snoring. It turned out to be Reina. Tsubasa was surprised to see Reina sleeping in the library. He admired her peaceful sleeping face, which instantly made him feel relieved. It seemed that Reina's beautiful face was like an anti-stress charm for studying. Not long after, Reina woke up and mentioned she had just dreamed about a war. Tsubasa was puzzled by her bloody dream, but despite that, Reina still looked stunning. At that moment, Reina realized Tsubasa was staring at her. Feeling a bit awkward, Tsubasa tried to focus on his studies again. Suddenly, Reina appeared right next to him, looking at him intently. Tsubasa was startled. Reina explained that she was a member of the library committee and had the authority over the library, which meant she was allowed to sleep there if she wanted. Tsubasa understood that Reina was afraid of getting caught sleeping, but he didn't mind at all. Reina complimented Tsubasa on his fit build and asked if he regularly worked out. She then touched his back playfully, which made him giggle because it tickled. Seeing Tsubasa studying, Reina pointed out that one of the circled answers he wrote was wrong. Judging by the material he was studying, she guessed he must be in first grade of high school. She encouraged him before leaving. Tsubasa wondered if Reina had just glanced at the question and answered, but that seemed unlikely. He guessed she must have seen that question before. When Tsubasa got home, he was surprised to see his grandmother waiting for him at the door. He asked what she was doing there. Kaede said she had spent the whole day thinking about how she could help him. She understood that since Tsubasa was still a teenager, there were things she couldn't fully grasp, but she felt that he had become more careless since coming to Hokkaido. Kaede believed he needed time to develop his mental strength. She invited Tsubasa to a tea ceremony, saying that tea could help clear worldly desires. Tsubasa used to have tea ceremonies in Tokyo, but this was his first time having one in Hokkaido. Kaede asked if his skills had gotten rusty, to which Tsubasa replied that it was like learning to ride a bike. Once the body remembers, it's hard to forget. Just as Kaede was about to start, the doorbell rang. She asked Tsubasa to answer the door. It was Reina, their neighbor, who had come to deliver an announcement. Tsubasa was surprised to learn they were neighbors and greeted Reina, introducing himself. Reina was amazed to see Tsubasa wearing traditional Japanese clothing and suddenly threw herself into his arms. Kaede wondered why Tsubasa took so long to open the door. She walked over and was shocked to see a girl in his embrace. Reina looked comfortable resting on Tsubasa's chest, and he was shocked that she was so close. Kaede scolded Tsubasa angrily, but he claimed he didn't understand what was happening. Reina quickly apologized, explaining that she had slipped and that Tsubasa had saved her. She thanked him and handed over the announcement. Kaede apologized for getting mad so quickly and thanked Reina for delivering the announcement. After that, Reina said goodbye. Kaede said since Reina brought the announcement herself, it meant she was indeed their neighbor. Kaede had only just noticed since the announcements were usually delivered by the head of the household. She praised Reina's beauty, which surprised Tsubasa because his grandmother rarely said things like that. He kept watching Reina walk away. Kaede then invited Tsubasa to start the tea ceremony, but he wasn't paying attention. She called him loudly and he quickly closed the door and joined her. Kaede said she seemed to know the reason for Tsubasa's recent carelessness and thought that mental training through tea ceremonies would be pointless if he kept slacking off. According to Kaede, what Tsubasa really needed was pressure. She told him he had to rank in the top 10 on the next exam, and if he failed, he would have to return to Tokyo. That day, Tsubasa headed to school, still thinking about his grandmother, who had told him he'd been careless ever since coming to Hokkaido. He hadn't expected his first exam in the new town to go that way, but he admitted to himself that he really had been careless. So he tried to motivate himself to study harder. At that moment, Reina came over and greeted him. She said she had been waiting for him for a while because she wanted to have a long chat. Actually, Tsubasa really wanted to talk with her, but he wasn't feeling very confident at the time. Reina noticed the gloomy look on his face and asked if his grandmother had scolded him for leaning on Tsubasa the day before. Tsubasa denied it and said it was just about his studies. They walked to school together and Reina apologized, confessing that she really loved history class, and whenever she saw traditional Japanese clothes, she couldn't help herself. Tsubasa was surprised to learn that Reina had such an unusual interest, which made her behavior the day before make more sense. Reina offered to help him study, but Tsubasa declined, saying it was just a ranking issue. Reina then asked if he thought her ranking was low and that it would be pointless to teach him. Tsubasa denied the misunderstanding and said he wouldn't mind if Reina taught him. What he wanted was a high rank. Reina told him that since high school, she had always been ranked number 1. Tsubasa was shocked to hear that. She even said she would share the kinds of questions that often appeared on all the subjects' tests. Tsubasa couldn't believe that Rihanna's looks and brains were both top-notch. He wondered if she had really answered all those questions instantly during the exam. If Rihanna taught him, getting into the top 10 would definitely be easy. He begged Rihanna to help him study, saying he had to do it because he still wanted to stay in Hokkaido. Rihanna understood how he felt and promised to teach him as best as she could. Tsubasa was very grateful to her. Because for the next 3 days, classes would only last until the morning, Rihanna asked Tsubasa to come to the library administration room after school. Usually, the library would be open for self-study before exams during those days, but for Tsubasa, she allowed him to use the administration room. Tsubasa asked if she was sure about letting him in. Rihanna said she was the library committee member. Tsubasa thought that was kind of an abuse of power. Rihanna said she would teach him freely, and Tsubasa was surprised to hear that. He realized that since no one else would be there, the room would basically be her private study space, but he was worried he might not be able to focus. Rihanna admitted she couldn't wait for school to be over. At school in the restroom, Minami told Erika that she had been feeling dizzy lately because of all the studying. Erika said she was looking forward to the exams being over so she could feel relieved. It was 5 days until the exams. When they left the restroom, Erika saw Tsubasa arriving and told Minami. Minami got excited and rushed over to Tsubasa to vent her stress from studying. She was surprised to see Tsubasa talking with Rihanna. Minami's heart raced at the sight of Rihanna in front of her. Rihanna reminded Tsubasa to meet her after school. Once Rihanna went back to her classroom, Minami approached her, not expecting to see Tsubasa so close with Rihanna. She felt really jealous of Tsubasa. Minami admitted that she was happy to see Rihanna that morning, but didn't dare approach her because she felt awkward. Rihanna was just so beautiful. To Minami, Rihanna was like the calming goddess who made her stress disappear. Tsubasa remembered that Minami had confessed before that she really idolized Rihanna. Tsubasa and Minami walked to class together, and Tsubasa mentioned that Rihanna was actually his neighbor. Minami was surprised to hear that Tsubasa was so lucky. No wonder they had gone to school together that morning. Suddenly, Minami fell silent for a moment, but when Tsubasa asked if she was okay, she said she was fine. That afternoon after classes, the homeroom teacher told the students that for the next 3 days, classes would only be held in the mornings. He reminded them to go home and study. He also said the library would remain open for self-study, but warned the students not to disturb others. Minami asked if Tsubasa couldn't join the group study again that day. Tsubasa apologized, saying he really had to give it his all for the exam so he couldn't study with Minami. Minami smiled and understood. She apologized for pushing him. Actually, Tsubasa felt really guilty for turning down Minami's invitation, even though it was all for the sake of making the top 10. But if he told her about his problems, even if it was his fault, kind-hearted Minami would blame herself, and he didn't want that to happen. After that, Tsubasa headed to the library administration room, feeling like he had to take responsibility for his actions. As long as he made the top 10, everything would go back to normal. He knocked on the door of the library administration room. Reina immediately asked him to say the password. After Tsubasa said Goryokaku, Reina opened the door for him. Reina admitted that she had been waiting for Tsubasa's arrival and then kindly let him inside. Tsubasa thought that Reina really loved history, especially since she used the Goryokaku fortress password to let him in. Reina sat down and asked what Tsubasa wanted to study. Tsubasa felt nervous because it was just the two of them alone. They then started studying math. Reina checked Tsubasa's practice problems and thought he was really good at answering them. She was confident he would rank among the top students. Tsubasa said he still had a long way to go and wanted to improve his potential, so he asked Reina not to hesitate to point out his mistakes. Reina mentioned there were some errors in his calculations and encouraged Tsubasa to try solving more problems so he could get them right. She asked who Tsubasa's math teacher was, and it turned out to be Mr. Takahashi. According to Reina, Mr. Takahashi really liked giving daily quizzes in the final exams, so she told Tsubasa to study those carefully. Tsubasa immediately took out the daily quizzes and started reviewing them again. A school operator announced that the school would soon be closing and asked the students to head home quickly, also reminding the library committee to lock up before leaving. Tsubasa thanked Reina for helping him, and Reina was happy because it motivated her to study even harder. Then Tsubasa asked if Reina wouldn't mind teaching him for 2 more days. Reina said she didn't mind and asked why he was working so hard. Tsubasa explained that if he didn't try his best, he might not be able to meet the people he cared about. Reina wanted a reward from Tsubasa. If he managed to get the rank he wanted, she asked him to go on a date with her. Tsubasa was surprised and his face turned red. That night, Minami and Momoko were watching TV together. Momoko reminded her older sister, who had exams coming up soon, and asked if Minami wasn't studying. Minami said she wasn't really planning to study. Mei then asked if Minami hadn't done group study with Tsubasa a few days ago. Minami said that didn't mean much, but Mei believed that forcing herself to study might just make things harder to understand. Mei offered Minami a Gorama drink, and Minami quickly went to her mother. Momoko thought their mom spoiled Minami too much. Minami felt refreshed after drinking the garama. Then Minami asked her mother if she had ever felt hot or short of breath even though she didn't have a fever. Minami also asked what she had eaten earlier. Minami was surprised that her mother didn't seem to understand. That night, Tsubasa was on the phone with Rana. Rana tested him with biology questions and Tsubasa was able to answer them. Rana was relieved that he had started memorizing the parts he wasn't good at. Tsubasa thanked Rana for teaching him at school and even during the weekend. Rana admitted that teaching Tsubasa motivated her, and she was also looking forward to her reward. Hearing that, Tsubasa got really nervous. After that, Rihanna said she would go to sleep soon so she could focus on her exam the next day. She reminded Tsubasa that taking care of his health was also important for the exam. She told him not to push himself too hard and to get some rest. Not long after, Kagade brought food for Tsubasa. Kagade asked if Tsubasa was ready for the exam tomorrow. Tsubasa said his only choice was to keep fighting because he wanted to stay there. The next day, exam day arrived. Minami was super excited to finish because then she wouldn't have to study anymore. Meanwhile, Sayuri felt worried about whether she could complete the exam since she had mostly been playing games. She really hoped she could at least pass the minimum passing grade. That day, Rihanna was unusually quiet, which surprised her friends because she was usually so confident. Rihanna said she believed she would be fine because she had worked hard. Her friends thought she might be talking about someone else. Right at 9 a.m., the exam started. After the exam, Minami looked very unmotivated. She went to the library to study and suddenly saw Tsubasa walking ahead of her. She followed him, but soon Tsubasa disappeared. She quickly searched around the library but couldn't find him. The next day, before the exam started, Minami asked if Tsubasa had studied in the library the day before. She admitted that when she was about to go to the library, she saw Tsubasa in the hallway and chased after him but lost track. Tsubasa stayed silent and Minami thought maybe she had just imagined it. Tsubasa decided to keep the fact that he studied with Rana a secret. Minami thought maybe she was just tired and had mistaken someone else for Tsubasa. She invited him to hang out and have fun after the exams were over and Tsubasa agreed, which made Minami really happy. Tsubasa then thought that if he could make it into the top 10 rankings, everything would be settled, including his secret with Rana, and he was confident he could handle it all. A week after the exams, Sayuri noticed that Minami looked really down, unlike her usual self during the tests. It turned out Minami's exam scores were quite poor, and the only questions she was able to answer were those she had studied with Tsubasa and Sayuri. Minami asked about Sayuri's rank, and Sayuri said she was just a little above the passing grade, ranking 72nd out of 176 students, while Minami ranked 148th out of 176. Minami regretted not listening to Tsubasa's advice to study harder since her scores were much worse than before. She then became curious about Tsubasa's scores. That same day, Tsubasa met Rana in the library's administration room. Rana asked how his exam results were, and Tsubasa told her that he had achieved 3rd place out of 176 students and made it into the top 10 as he hoped. He mentioned that the math and biology questions he studied with her appeared exactly on the test, and he credited Rana for that. Rana was very happy to hear this. Tsubasa asked about Rana's rank, worried that her scores might have dropped because she helped him study. But Rana told him not to worry since she had maintained her usual 1st place out of 172 students. Tsubasa called Rana incredibly amazing. Rana then asked if he hadn't forgotten his promise and Tsubasa assured her that he hadn't. Rana was excitedly looking forward to Saturday. That weekend, Mei was about to go shopping and asked Minami if she wanted her to bring anything. Minami was still lying in bed, so Mei left and told her to call if she needed anything. Tsubasa was getting ready to go out and Kaede asked where he was going. Tsubasa said he planned to have tea with a friend. Kaede didn't stop him since he had just earned 3rd place. Tsubasa quickly said goodbye and left. He wondered if maybe he had arrived too early since their meeting was about 15 minutes away. Soon after, Rana called him. Tsubasa was stunned by Rana's appearance. She was wearing traditional Japanese clothing. She looked so elegant and perfect that he couldn't even look directly at her. Rana said Tsubasa looked really good in traditional Japanese clothes and promised not to hug him like last time. Tsubasa's face turned bright red while staring at her. Rana admitted she had been really looking forward to this because going on a date in traditional Japanese attire had been her dream since she was a kid, and she had even left home earlier than planned because she was so excited. Seeing Rana looking so dazzling almost made Tsubasa melt. Tsubasa even invited Rana to go out with a very polite phrase like a true samurai would. While they were in the car, Mei saw Tsubasa on the street and was curious why he was dressed in traditional Japanese clothes and wondered who the girl beside him was. Tsubasa kept looking at Rana's face until she thought there was something on it. He admitted he was mesmerized by the beauty of her kimono. Rana smiled and said that the kimono she was wearing was her favorite. They hadn't picked a place to visit yet. Tsubasa thought that since he was the guy, he should probably decide, but since he didn't go out often, he didn't know any good places. Rihanna said that as long as she was with Tsubasa, it would be fun. Even just walking around would be enjoyable. Reina looked at Tsubasa with a smile, which made him blush and nervous. He invited her to take a short walk. Meanwhile, Mei sent a message to Minami saying that Tsubasa was on a date with a girl. Minami almost couldn't believe it. That Saturday, Minami invited Sayuri to meet at the shopping mall. It turned out Minami had a specific reason. She wanted to show Sayuri that Tsubasa was on a date with Rihanna. They spotted Tsubasa and Rihanna at a small shoe stall, picking out a pair. Minami was delighted to see Rihanna wearing a kimono, which made her look especially beautiful. Since both Tsubasa and Rihanna were in kimono, it was clear they had planned to meet that way. Minami guessed they were on a date and explained to Sayuri that her mom had been the one to tell her about seeing Tsubasa with a girl. When Minami asked for details and found out the girl was Reina, she couldn't hide her excitement. Sayuri, however, was confused about why Minami had dragged her along. Minami admitted it was just for fun and thought Sayuri might be interested. Sayuri reluctantly agreed to tag along. When Tsubasa and Reina left the stall, Sayuri suggested they follow them. The two trailed behind as Tsubasa and Reina headed to a game center. Tsubasa had never been to a place like that while wearing traditional Japanese clothing, so he felt a little out of place. Reina's attention was caught by a stuffed toy inside a claw machine, a melon kuma, the local mascot of Yubari. Tsubasa was surprised to learn that Reina liked that kind of thing. He also found some of the other plush toys pretty cute and unique, which piqued his interest. He decided to try winning the melon kuma for her, but failed. Reina encouraged him to try one more time since he had almost gotten it. While Minami and Sayuri watched from afar, Sayuri grew impatient, muttering that Tsubasa should have considered the toy's length from the side, not just from the front. She wanted to jump in and show him how it was done, but Minami stopped her and told her to calm down. Before long, Tsubasa managed to win a small plush toy instead. Reina was thrilled. It was Mint, the local mascot of Kitami. Tsubasa told her it was a gift just for her and apologized for not getting the melon kuma. Reina happily thanked him and promised to treasure it forever. Tsubasa was flustered by her pure and genuine reaction. Watching from a distance, Minami commented that Tsubasa was the kind of person who would give his all for anyone, which made her respect him even more. She was sure Reina felt the same. Minami admired how Tsubasa, despite being in an unfamiliar place with no friends, never showed any unease and instead worked harder than anyone else. To her, he was way cooler than a typical good-looking guy, and she wished she could be like him. She figured everyone probably felt that way, including Sayuri. At that moment, Sayuri was busy in a claw machine of her own, winning plush toy after plush toy, so distracted that she didn't hear a word Minami had just said. When Tsubasa and Reina headed toward the movie theater, Minami urged Sayuri to follow them. Sayuri quickly asked for a bag to carry all her plushies. Unfortunately, they lost track of Tsubasa and Reina. To make it up to Minami, Sayuri promised to give her half of the plushies she had won. Minami's mood instantly lifted at the offer. Minami guessed that Tsubasa and Reina were probably going to watch a movie. Sayuri, who really wanted to see an anime film that was playing, agreed to watch one with Minami. Meanwhile, Reina admitted she couldn't wait to watch their movie, and Tsubasa described her as being adorably sincere. The film was about heroine working hard to build her career, and Tsubasa noticed how deeply Reina got into the story, so much that she even cried. After the movie, they went to a cafe to talk about it. Tsubasa said the film was amazing, especially the final scene where the heroine rose to success and gained worldwide recognition. It felt both satisfying and moving. Reina admitted she had cried midway through, and Tsubasa asked if she cried easily. Reina explained that she related to the heroine. She also studied hard and achieved good results but rarely received praise. When Tsubasa asked if she often felt that way, she was surprised to hear that he had experienced something similar many times. He even shared that he had argued with his parents so much that he eventually ran away to Hokkaido. When Reina asked if his parents were strict, Tsubasa denied it, saying he was just stubborn. Reina confessed she was the opposite. She always worried about what others thought and felt like she had to do even better. Without praise, she sometimes questioned what she was doing and whether she would just stop trying if no one noticed her efforts. Tsubasa suggested that maybe that was part of what drove her to succeed, and that there was a positive side to it. You believe everyone wanted praise, but not many could actually follow through on what they started. He was certain that somewhere out there, someone felt inspired just by seeing Reina. Reina seemed doubtful that anyone could feel that way about her. Tsubasa said that the scene in the movie where the heroine declared, "I am who I am," was the moment when she realized she could embrace being herself in a positive way. Reina admitted that it was her favorite scene too, and Tsubasa agreed. Reina felt that she and Tsubasa seemed to share a lot in common, from their tastes and worries, all the way to discovering that they actually lived in the same neighborhood. Tsubasa realized the same thing, especially when he noticed that both their families often wore traditional Japanese clothing. Reina shared that people often saw her as strange, and it was rare to find someone who truly understood her. She was genuinely happy to have met Tsubasa. Tsubasa felt the same way and admitted he wanted to get to know Reina even better after talking with her that day. Then Reina asked if Tsubasa had a girlfriend, which caught him off guard. She explained that she thought he was a sincere person, so she believed he wouldn't date her if he was already seeing someone. At that moment, Minami and Sayuri had just come out of the theater, with Sayuri still excited about how satisfying the movie's story had been. Tsubasa told Reina he didn't have a girlfriend, and she asked if he ever felt lonely, especially since he had just moved to Hokkaido and had to start making friends from scratch. She said that if she were in his place, she might feel lonely. Tsubasa admitted that making friends had been hard at first, completely unaware that Minami and Sayuri were eavesdropping on their conversation. He went on to say that he'd managed to make friends he truly valued, so he didn't feel lonely anymore. On top of that, meeting Reina, someone hardworking and inspiring, had been uplifting for him. Since moving to Hokkaido, many things had encouraged him. Hearing this, Reina smiled, happy that he enjoyed living there. Tsubasa asked if she'd be okay with him inviting her to hang out with his friends sometime. Reina asked if he was really sure about that, and just then, Minami and Sayuri walked up to them. Sayuri wondered why Minami hadn't stayed hidden. Tsubasa was surprised, realizing they'd probably overheard everything he'd said to Reina. Minami immediately teased Tsubasa for making the first move to invite Reina out. Sayuri quickly apologized to Reina for interrupting. Reina asked who they were, and Tsubasa introduced them as his classmates, Minami and Sayuri. Minami protested, insisting that Tsubasa should have introduced them as his valuable friends instead. Tsubasa agreed, and Reina understood that they were indeed important friends to him. Minami then introduced herself to Reina, saying she had admired her for a long time and wanted the chance to shake her hand. Reina was surprised to learn she had a fan. Tsubasa found it unusual to see both Minami and Reina looking nervous. Minami was thrilled to finally shake Reina's soft, beautiful, and light hands, even noting how gentle her fingertips felt. She thanked Reina sincerely and jokingly said she wouldn't wash her hand afterward. Reina laughed and reminded her not to forget to wash it, and Minami promised she'd wash her hands plenty. Sayuri told Minami to calm down because Reina seemed confused. Minami asked if she'd said something weird, which made Reina laugh. Minami apologized, but Reina said she found her fun to be around and now understood why Tsubasa had called them valuable friends. Hearing that made Minami, Sayuri, and Tsubasa blush. Suddenly, Mei walked up to the group, and Minami was surprised to see her mom there. Everyone greeted Mei. She told them she had sold some clothes on Mercari and received a bonus. So while they were all together, she wanted to treat them to yakiniku. They were all excited, though Tsubasa thought yakiniku was pretty fancy. Mei explained that Kitami was famous for having many of the most luxurious yakiniku restaurants, while in Tokyo, people usually just went for ramen or desserts. She told them not to feel shy with her. After that, they went to a restaurant to have yakiniku together. Minami called it their post-exam celebration. They grilled the meat together, and Mei mentioned that Reina and Tsubasa's kimonos might end up smelling like smoke. Reina replied that her kimono could be washed. Mei then handed them plastic bags to store Tsubasa's and Reina's hori. Minami quickly took her meat off the grill. Sayuri asked if it wasn't too soon, but Minami explained she preferred it that way because she didn't like it overcooked. When she took a bite, the flavor was amazing. The fat melted right in her mouth, and even from the very first bite, the meat was soft and tender. Hearing that, Reina decided she wanted to try meat that wasn't fully cooked. She quickly grabbed her grilled beef tongue, while Sayuri picked up her pork slices. As soon as they put the meat in their mouths, they experienced an incredible taste. Reina enjoyed the crispy texture on the outside, which contrasted with the soft, fatty inside, enhanced even more by the green onions. Sayuri also savored the rich, juicy pork flavor that filled her mouth. Tsubasa was happy to see the three of them enjoying the food together. Mei offered Tsubasa a piece of upper steak, and Tsubasa asked what cut of meat it was. Minami was surprised he didn't know. Reina explained that in Tokyo it was usually called skirt steak, but Tsubasa still didn't understand which part it was. Reina clarified that it came from the diaphragm. Sayuri admitted she had just learned that as well. She had always thought all meat was the same. Tsubasa took a bite of the upper steak and realized it was incredibly tender, even without much fat. The cut was thick, and each bite was full of rich flavor. He was thrilled to discover how delicious Hokkaido yakiniku could be. Mei encouraged him to eat more, and Tsubasa enjoyed it to the fullest. Then he remembered that Hokkaido was famous for jingisuken and wondered why no one had ordered it at the restaurant. Minami explained that if they wanted jingisuken, there was no need to go to a restaurant since people usually made it at home. Tsubasa was surprised to learn it was a home-cooked dish, as he had thought it was a luxury meal. Reina added that most homes even had their own Jingisukan grill. Sayuri compared it to how takoyaki grills were common in Osaka. Apparently, Jingisukan grills had become a standard item in households and could even be used like a regular hot plate. Mei was delighted to see everyone in such high spirits. She teased Tsubasa, saying he was lucky to be surrounded by cute girls like Sayuri and Reina. Minami protested, wondering why she wasn't included in that description. She then admitted that Reina was indeed special, especially since she always ranked first in exams. Mei immediately praised her, and Sayuri asked how Minami even knew that. Minami confessed she was a big fan of Reina. Sayuri commented that Reina's life seemed blessed with natural talent. Minami disagreed, believing Reina must have worked very hard behind the scenes, just like how makeup and nail art didn't come together by accident. She was convinced that Reina's top ranking came from effort, and Minami even felt more motivated herself whenever she saw Reina. Reina was happy to hear Minami's words. Sayuri quickly apologized for speaking without thinking. Mei remarked that if Minami worked just as hard, she could be perfect too. At that moment, Tsubasa quietly told Reina that at least someone recognized her efforts. After eating, they walked home together. Along the way, Minami asked if Tsubasa and Reina were dating. Tsubasa denied it, saying their outing had its own reasons. Minami then said that next time it should be her turn and even suggested staying over. Tsubasa was shocked by that, which only made Minami enjoy his funny reaction more. She smiled and told him they should go on a date in the spring. Minami quickly caught up with the others, already planning to invite Reina and Sayuri to have Jingisukan in the spring. She couldn't wait for them to gather again. Tsubasa also looked forward to spending springtime in Hokkaido. That day, Sayuri felt extremely cold at school. In her opinion, March was the hardest month to get through. Not long after, Minami came in full of energy, clearly excited for tomorrow. Sayuri only then realized that tomorrow was the 14th, but she felt like many people didn't take it seriously. Minami was certain that Tsubasa must be planning something, and Sayuri hoped that was true. Before long, Tsubasa arrived, and Minami immediately went to greet him. She wasted no time asking him about White Day. Tsubasa admitted that he had indeed been thinking about a gift, but he was only just about to start preparing it. Minami had thought Tsubasa would be the nervous one, but instead, it was Minami's sudden question that made Sayuri feel nervous. Around that time, Takayumi overheard their conversation and later caught up with Tsubasa in the hallway. He asked if Tsubasa knew what day tomorrow was. When Tsubasa guessed that he meant White Day, Takayumi explained that he wanted to ask for advice. He felt bad and wanted to apologize to Minami and Sayuri because he had spoken poorly about them before. He hadn't meant any harm, but when he thought back on it, especially after Minami had given him chocolates, he felt really guilty. Since then, he hadn't talked much to Minami and was sure Sayuri must dislike him as well. So he thought White Day would be the perfect chance to give them something while apologizing. Tsubasa suggested that he apologize sincerely and tell them he wanted to stay friends. Tsubasa was certain Minami no longer thought about that incident and would still want to be friends with him. If Sayuri saw him apologizing to Minami, that would be enough for her as well. Takayumi smiled, calling Tsubasa a pro, and thanked him. After school, Tsubasa went to see his grandmother and asked her to help him bake something. According to Kaede, no one used to really celebrate White Day back in the day. Tsubasa said that simply saying thank you could feel awkward, and that everyone would naturally want to make the people they care about happy. Kaede smiled and agreed with his words. The next day at school, Takayumi apologized to Minami directly for what he had done on Valentine's Day. As a gesture, he brought her an onion pie from Uzenya as both a gift and an apology. Minami didn't expect a present from him, and she admitted she actually loved it. She hadn't been thinking about that incident anymore, but she thanked him and told him she'd be happy to be friends. Takayumi was deeply moved by her words. Soon after, Tsubasa arrived with Sayuri. Takayumi asked Sayuri if she was no longer upset with him, and she said she didn't mind if Minami had already let it go. It turned out Takayumi also had a gift for Sayuri. Then Tsubasa brought out the snacks he had made and shared them with everyone. He explained that his grandmother often made this treat for him called milk senbei. Tsubasa thought it was the perfect time to share snacks with friends. Minami and Sayuri were delighted to receive them. Suddenly, Takayumi wanted to thank Tsubasa and asked if there was anything he wanted. Tsubasa said there wasn't anything in particular at the moment. Later at home, Tsubasa told his grandmother that his friends really enjoyed the milk senbei because they tasted so good. Kaede was happy to hear it. Tsubasa mentioned that Minami wanted to try making them herself, so he wanted the recipe. Kaede promised to write it down for him. After getting the recipe, Tsubasa took a photo of it and sent it to Minami. Suddenly, a message came in from Takayumi, inviting him to go fishing on Sunday as thanks for the gift. Takayumi mentioned that his father would be joining too. Since Tsubasa had never gone fishing before, he asked if it was okay because he was a beginner, and Takayumi assured him it was fine. On Sunday, Tsubasa went with Takayumi and his father to Lake Abashiri. It was his first time fishing, and he was really looking forward to it. Takayumi picked a fishing spot, and the two of them headed there, parting ways with his father. Unexpectedly, they ran into Minami, who was surprised to see them. Takayumi explained that he was the one who invited Tsubasa to fish. Minami was there with her family because her father enjoyed fishing. She mentioned that her father hadn't caught anything yet, so she had moved to a different spot. Feeling bored, she was about to head back to the car, but Takayumi invited her to fish with them, and she agreed. Takayumi quickly drilled a hole through the snow and told them to grab chairs since waiting while standing would be uncomfortable. He prepared the fishing rods and bait, red larvae, and demonstrated how to hook the bait. Once the bait was secured on each hook, it just needed to be lowered into the hole until the weight touched the lake bottom, then gently raised and lowered to attract fish. The scent of the bait would spread and draw them in. Hearing his explanation, Tsubasa called Takayumi impressive and dependable. Minami added that she always had her father put the bait on for her. Takayumi was confident that they would have a big fish feast that day. The three of them began fishing, patiently waiting for a fish to bite, but after an hour, they still hadn't caught anything. Normally, the fishing rod would shake when a fish bit the bait, but none of their rods had moved at all. Tsubasa remarked that the fun part of fishing was actually in the waiting. Hearing that touched Takayumi, and he got up to go check on his father. At that moment, Minami joked that it would be funny if they caught a bunch of fish while Takayumi was away. Tsubasa decided to reel in his rod only to find that none of the bait had been eaten. He lowered the rod back into the hole and moved it up and down. Tsubasa asked if Minami wasn't getting bored. Minami said she wasn't, since it had been a while since they'd spent time alone together, and Tsubasa agreed. In truth, they had already spent plenty of time together before. Still, Minami thought it felt strange just sitting quietly and waiting, so she scooted closer to Tsubasa and suggested they watch a video. The video Minami played was from a beauty influencer she had recently followed, showing makeup transformations that looked like they could change a person into someone entirely different. There were also tutorials for men's makeup. Minami said she wished she could be that skilled. Tsubasa told her that her makeup always looked natural and beautiful. Minami asked if that meant he had been paying close enough attention to call her beautiful. This caught Tsubasa off guard, and he clarified that he had been talking about her makeup. Even so, he admitted that he didn't know much about makeup techniques, so there were probably plenty of things he didn't understand. Tsubasa praised Minami for knowing so much about makeup and always continuing to learn. He realized that looking cute and beautiful really did take effort. Minami said she wanted to help everyone look beautiful and dreamed of becoming an expert in makeup, maybe even studying beauty overseas one day, though she admitted that was just a dream for now. Tsubasa told her she was amazing for thinking that far ahead. In his view, Minami's beauty and makeup skills were already on another level. Hearing that made Minami blush. Minami then asked if Tsubasa had ever used wax. He said he hadn't. She told him that he already looked fine the way he was, but with just a little touch-up, it could make a big difference because his skin was in such good condition. She even said she wanted to try doing his makeup. Tsubasa quickly refused. Noticing that Tsubasa had gone out without applying moisturizer or toner, Minami warned him that the cold weather would dry out his skin. She suggested he use lip balm and even offered to lend him hers. Tsubasa was surprised by this and hesitated. Minami explained that she just didn't want his lips to become dry or cracked. Tsubasa refused, thinking it would feel too awkward. Minami, however, insisted on helping him apply it. Their faces ended up close together, and Tsubasa noticed how shiny Minami's lips looked. Just as their faces were about to get even closer, instead of putting on the lip balm, Minami leaned in toward his lips. They almost kissed, but at that very moment, Takayumi's voice startled them. Takayumi walked over and told them that his father had caught a lot of fish, so they should also try moving to another spot to get a big catch they could turn into tempura. Minami got excited, since she loved rockfish tempura. Tsubasa, still flustered, thought the earlier moment had almost been enough to make his soul leave his body, and he felt relieved that Takayumi had unknowingly saved him. After moving to a new spot, Tsubasa began catching fish one after another. Minami was also thrilled to be catching plenty. Takayumi said that this spot was definitely the right choice. Once they had gathered enough, they fried the fish and enjoyed them together. Minami loved the rockfish tempura they made. When Tsubasa tried it, he found the outer batter perfectly crispy, while the inside was hot, chewy, and had an amazing aroma. Combined with the outdoor dining atmosphere, he really enjoyed it and silently thanked the rockfish in Hokkaido. Seeing Tsubasa's expression, Takayumi commented that he seemed to be enjoying himself. Minami added that Tsubasa always made food look delicious. Takayumi then brought out rice balls with clam seasoning made by his mother. When Tsubasa took a bite, he felt the chewy, dense rice paired with a slightly smoky aroma fill his mouth. He thought the combination of the hot tempura and the rice balls was perfect. Minami agreed it was delicious. Takayumi explained that the Matsu family recipe called for melting butter into the clam broth to make it taste even better. For Tsubasa, his first fishing trip had been a lot of fun, but it ended with him catching a fever. The next day, he was stuck in bed, realizing it had been a bad idea to take off his jacket while fishing. Out of the blue, Sayuri sent him a message asking how he was doing, saying she heard he had a fever. Tsubasa assured her it wasn't that bad and apologized for making her worry. Sayuri told him they should play games together again once he was feeling better. Not long after, Kaede came by his room with some food. She asked how he was feeling, and he said he was already doing a bit better. She had made porridge for him and told him to eat it right away. She also brought a drink from Rana. When Kaede had told Rana that Tsubasa was sick, Rana had gone home to get it for him. The bottle came with a note saying she wanted him to drink it so he wouldn't get dehydrated and that she hoped he'd get well soon. Tsubasa felt grateful to have such kind friends. Kaede said she had to step out for a while and told him to rest. After finishing his meal, Tsubasa went back to resting, but his fever seemed to get worse. He couldn't believe he'd gotten sick right before spring, and what made it worse was how lonely he felt. That day, he really wished someone would be there for him. Then, Minami's voice woke him up. She had come to check on him and ask how he was feeling. Seeing her, Tsubasa tried to sit up, but she told him to lie back down. She explained that she had run into Kaede on the way, and since Kaede seemed worried, she promised to look after him. Just having Minami in his room lifted his spirits. She leaned closer to check on him, which startled Tsubasa and made him cough. Minami quickly noticed how bad his cough was, along with his stuffy nose and higher than expected fever. She told him to have some mint candy made from Kitami peppermint, confident it would help him breathe better. Once he ate the candy, a soft mint aroma spread in his mouth, perfectly balancing freshness and sweetness, and it became easier for him to breathe. Minami admitted she felt responsible for his fever, but Tsubasa insisted it was his own fault for not being careful. Still, Minami said it was because she kept urging him to keep fishing, so she was going to take responsibility and look after him that day. Tsubasa was surprised to hear that. Minami promised she'd do anything he asked. That makes Tsubasa blush, since the way she said it sounded a little ambiguous. He decided to just lie down again, but the dizziness returned. Minami asked what she should do and what he wanted, but he couldn't think of anything. Noticing his flushed face, she gently stroked his head. In a soft voice, Tsubasa told her to just stay by his side. Minami took his hand and smiled warmly at him. Soon after, Tsubasa fell into a deep sleep while Minami stayed by his side. When he woke up, his body felt much better, and he was sure it was thanks to Minami's candy. He knew he had to thank her. He quickly sent her a message saying his fever had gone down and his sore throat was gone because of the candy she gave him. Minami was relieved to hear he was better. Tsubasa thanked her for stopping by the day before, but he was curious if they had talked about anything before he fell asleep. Minami said they hadn't, since he had fallen asleep right away. At that moment, Tsubasa thought he might have been holding her hand while he slept. Meanwhile, Minami couldn't stop thinking about the feeling of his hand in hers and wondered if it might be nice if they could stay like that a little longer. That day marked the first day of spring, but in Hokkaido, spring still felt chilly. That morning, Tsubasa said goodbye and headed off to school. The moment he stepped outside, he noticed little kids running toward their schools. Now a second-year high school student, Tsubasa was reminded of the time when he had just arrived in Hokkaido, amazed at the streets covered in snow. It had already been more than 2 months since he moved there, and time seemed to fly by so quickly. Up ahead, Tsubasa spotted Minami waiting for him. He found it strange because her house was far from his. Minami greeted him with a smile, grabbed his arm, and admitted she had been waiting to walk to school together. She teased him, asking if he could really leave a girl standing out in the cold, and called him heartless. Tsubasa apologized, saying that if she had told him earlier, he would have left home sooner. But it turned out Minami wanted to see the look of surprise on his face. As they walked side by side, Tsubasa noticed that Minami seemed a bit more forward than usual. She asked if his recent fever had gone away. Tsubasa assured her he was fine, but his grandmother had been overly worried and made him stay in bed until 9 in the morning, which meant he couldn't go anywhere for the rest of the spring break. Minami felt bad for him, but understood since he always listened to his grandmother. She admitted that her own spring break felt short and confessed she had actually wanted to spend more time with him during the break. Minami teased him again, saying his heart must be racing right then. Tsubasa was caught off guard, wondering why his first day back at school had to start with her giving him such a jolt. To him, Hokkaido was amazing. It was already April, yet snow was still around. Back in Tokyo, the streets would already be full of cherry blossoms. Minami explained that cherry blossoms in Hokkaido usually bloomed in May, so the start of the school year didn't have that classic sakura vibe. Instead, cherry, plum, and peach blossoms would bloom all at once. This was news to Tsubasa. Minami said that the season passed in the blink of an eye, making it feel like winter instantly jumped into summer. Tsubasa shared that out of all the seasons, spring was his favorite. Minami, on the other hand, loved winter because of all the activities, skiing, winter barbecue festivals, Christmas, New Year's, and Valentine's Day. Looking at the bare cherry blossom trees, Tsubasa hoped he could see them in full bloom in Hokkaido someday. That day, their classes were going to be rearranged, and he hoped he and Minami would end up in the same one again. Suddenly, he noticed Minami's cheerful mood fade. She told him about a rumor that their school's class reshuffling was done in a way that kept high and low-performing students from being in the same class. This was the first time Tsubasa had heard about it. Minami said it was just a rumor, but if it were true, they wouldn't be in the same class, and they'd probably rarely see each other. They'd end up in new friend circles, and thinking about that made her sad. That was why she wanted to walk to school with him that morning. Tsubasa told her that if they ended up in different classes, he would be the one to come find her. The moment he said it, he felt embarrassed, insisting he only meant it so she wouldn't worry. He started wondering if what he'd said sounded too cheesy. Minami laughed, saying it was obvious he was trying to act cool. She called him cute, especially with how his face turned red when he said it. This only made him more embarrassed. Still, Minami thanked him for cheering her up. When they got to school, they rushed over to the class list posted on the board to find their names. To their surprise, they were both in Class 2-4. They couldn't hide their excitement. It turned out the rumor was completely false. Sayuri soon came over and happily announced that the three of them were in the same class again. Overjoyed, Minami hugged her. Sayuri said she had a feeling this would happen, and Minami playfully called her a fortune teller. Minami admitted she had been worried because of the rumor about sorting students by exam scores, but Sayuri had heard it too and pointed out that if it were true, the school would have done it from their first year. At that moment, Tsubasa's gaze landed on Rana, who smiled before walking away. Minami then noticed that Sayuri had cut her hair. Sayuri said she did it to feel lighter. Tsubasa told her the new haircut really suited her, which made her blush. He quickly apologized as his comment sounded awkward. Not long after, Takayumi arrived and announced that he was also in Class 2-4. Tsubasa was surprised they'd be classmates again. Takayumi felt genuinely happy to be in the same class again with his close friends. He invited them to head to the classroom together. While walking there, Sayuri mentioned that she was planning to teach Tsubasa how to play games again, especially since there was a new update and they should get even more excited about it. Takayumi asked if Sayuri also liked playing games. He then admitted that he enjoyed gaming too. Sayuri shared that she liked everything from shooting games to rhythm games to adventure games. Takayumi was surprised at how broad her taste was. According to Sayuri, it was just like the saying, after trying something sweet, one would want to try something sour. During that moment, Minami was simply watching them chat enthusiastically about games. Not long after, Tsubasa called out to Minami and invited her over. Minami smiled and walked toward him. That day, the homeroom teacher for Class 2-4 introduced herself. Her name was Misa. She greeted the students and said that they would be choosing a class president and vice president right away. Misa asked who would like to volunteer and also mentioned that they could nominate their friends. Suddenly, Takayumi spoke up, nominating Tsubasa for class president. Tsubasa was taken aback. Misa asked why Takayumi had chosen him. Takayumi explained that it was because Tsubasa was smart, responsible, and kind to his classmates. Tsubasa pointed out that he had been at the school for less than 6 months. Takayumi reasoned that if Tsubasa became class president, he wouldn't make careless decisions and would always listen to everyone's opinions, which would help the class get along better. Tsubasa was surprised that Takayumi thought so highly of him. Minami and Sayuri agreed with the idea as well. Takayumi even mentioned that Tsubasa was originally from Tokyo, which made Tsubasa wonder if that could even be considered an advantage. Misa then asked Tsubasa if he was interested in becoming class president. Tsubasa said he was willing to do it if it would help everyone. His answer earned cheers from the class. Misa declared that if there were no other candidates, she would appoint Tsubasa as the class president, and since everyone agreed, that's exactly what happened. Next, Misa asked if anyone wanted to be vice president. Minami immediately volunteered, surprising the other students. Misa turned to the class and asked what they thought. Takayumi questioned if Minami could handle it, but she confidently said she could because she was diligent. In the end, everyone agreed and Misa was happy that the election went smoothly. That night, Sayuri and Tsubasa were set to play an online game together. The game they were going to play was called Gather Monster Mountain, or Human for short. It turned out that Tsubasa had bought a console using his savings. When Sayuri heard that, she apologized for assuming he already had one and for teaching him without giving it much thought. Tsubasa told her not to worry, as he had always been interested in games anyway. Sayuri asked why he never turned down invitations from others. Tsubasa explained that if he had never tried something, he wouldn't know where the fun was, and besides, he was happy that Sayuri had invited him. Sayuri felt relieved hearing that. She then said she would invite Tsubasa to her in-game mountain and asked what name he used. Tsubasa revealed that his game character's name was Hanakoto, which meant wings. He asked Sayuri what name she used, and she said it was Thamuzan. When Tsubasa asked why she chose that name, Sayuri told him it wasn't polite to ask about the origin of someone's in-game name. Tsubasa apologized and said her name sounded cute. They started playing, and Hanakoto went to visit Thamuzan's in-game house. Hanakoto was surprised to see how big it was. Curious, he asked how Thamuzan had gotten all those furnishings. Thamuzan explained that she had been playing seriously. She added that Hanakoto was the first to ever visit her home. Hanakoto thanked her, saying he felt honored to be invited. Tsubasa hadn't expected gaming to feel that exciting. Hanakoto then invited Thamuzan to visit his own in-game home. It turned out that his place was still in its basic starter setting. It was small, and he had an odd mascot that came as a bonus when he made his purchase. Hanakoto wanted to decorate her house, but she didn't have enough materials and her taste in design was pretty plain. Thamuzan then suggested gathering materials from his mountain. He took Hanakoto to Mount Teisetsu. Thamuzan explained that it was the name of a mountain in Hokkaido called Teisetsu-zan. The name Teisetsu uses the characters for Uryuki, meaning heavy snow. It turned out that all this time Tsubasa had been calling it Deisetsu-zan. Hanakoto asked if that meant it was Thamuzan's precious mountain. The two of them cut down trees to gather wood, working together to collect a good amount in no time. Thamuzan said Hanakoto was doing well for a beginner. After that, they started building the house together. Thamuzan apologized for practically taking over Hanakoto's house project, but Hanakoto was actually happy about it. She admitted that if she had been working alone, she probably would have given up. She praised Thamuzan, calling him amazing, and thanked him for his help. Suddenly, Sayuri spoke up, saying that the ones who were really amazing were Tsubasa and Minami. She also mentioned that Takayuki deserved credit for suggesting Tsubasa as class president in their new, unfamiliar class. Tsubasa said that Takayuki was naturally outgoing. Sayuri insisted that Tsubasa was the impressive one for being nominated and accepted as class president, while Minami was also brave for volunteering to be vice president. Tsubasa admitted he was surprised when Minami volunteered. Sayuri's expression turned a little gloomy, and she said that everyone else was amazing while she herself hadn't changed. Tsubasa disagreed, saying that Sayuri had indeed changed. In the past, she preferred to be alone, but now she was willing to greet him. He also pointed out that when she tried skiing during practice, that was probably her biggest change so far. There were other moments too, like when she taught everyone how to play games, or when she stood up to Takayuki in defense of Minami. Just as Sayuri was about to say something, Tsubasa suddenly shouted that Hanakoto had finished building her house. He then asked if Sayuri had been about to say something earlier, but she decided not to and instead congratulated him on becoming class president, telling him she would support him. The next day, in the archive room, Tsubasa and Minami were organizing files. The sky had grown dark, and Minami commented that being at school late at night made her heart race. Tsubasa admitted he didn't like it. Minami teased, asking if he was afraid of ghosts. Tsubasa clarified that it wasn't that. He just didn't like the school being dark and completely silent, since it felt so empty. Minami responded that it was actually kind of nice because it felt like the whole world belonged just to the two of them, and that made her heart race. Their eyes met, and Tsubasa felt nervous. He remembered to thank Minami for volunteering as vice president, admitting that he had been surprised but that she was a big help. Minami said everyone had been surprised, including herself. She wondered aloud if maybe she wasn't very dependable. Tsubasa quickly disagreed, saying that it was more that someone like Minami usually wasn't interested in doing something like that. Minami admitted she had never done it before and wasn't particularly into that kind of work, but she had done it simply because she wanted to spend more time with him. Tsubasa felt like Minami was teasing him more than usual that day. He thought that if she had said something like that back when he had just transferred schools, he would have been completely flustered. But Minami assured him she wasn't teasing and was actually serious about what she said. Hearing that, Tsubasa's face turned red. Just then, Misa came into the archive room and asked if they were done with their work. Minami showed her what they had accomplished, and Misa immediately praised them. She was happy that Tsubasa and Minami were the class officers, and she thanked them both. That night, Minami and Tsubasa walked home together. The night air still felt like winter. As they walked, Tsubasa thought Minami seemed less cheerful than usual, even though she had teased him a lot earlier. He couldn't help but wonder what was on her mind. Suddenly, Minami asked him to keep an entire day free during Golden Week next month because there was something she wanted to tell him. Right after saying that, she quickly left. It was the first time Tsubasa had seen her so serious. It was spring, and the snow in Hokkaido had already started to melt. But inside Tsubasa's head, everything still felt completely white.